Welcome to Superhero Stuff You Should Know. You guys want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. We're gonna go into the spoilers. This is Bat Ben, and with me is
the Speed Drew, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes, so
morning, actually, probably for most people.
That's
anyway.
True too. We are going to cover this is basically a deep dive into the Flash movie. Spoilers galore on this. So if you have not seen this, leave now, or maybe you don't want to see the movie and just want to see us, which is fine too, as long as you're watching us. But we are comparing the Flash movie to the comics, specifically Flashpoint, but we're also going to go into all the little Easter eggs and references, especially when it comes to a certain Batman in this movie. So that's all laid out here, and we'll give our spoiler thoughts and kind of a deep dive review as we go through it.
We can't do every Easter egg in this movie, but we could do.
I tried my best.
Woo! That's a lot of Easter eggs, man.
It was a lot. This was, to be honest, I think I had a bigger thing in the Batman than in this one. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just fucking crazy. But like, it's the Batman. I specifically had to spend what felt like all day the next day being like, oh shit, there's this part and there's this part, and then this one I'm like, nah, I kind of knew this was coming, and so this was already prepared. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah,
okay.
We'll cover what we can.
Okay.
On this. So for those who have seen the movie, you know that the opening titles kind of go really quickly when it comes to logos. One of them is a classic DC logo, which I really liked. But in general, our opening starts with kind of a smart move on their part where they establish the current Justice League and universe, especially for people who might not have seen these movies before or just getting back into these movies. But they try to make it there so that it's more dramatic when we see what's changed. This is actually similar to the Flashpoint animated movie, Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox, because of the fact that in the Flashpoint comic, it does not actually start with sort of establishing any of that. It doesn't start with Barry interacting with the Justice League at all. It just starts immediately when we're already in that timeline, and they make it a mystery in the comic book of how come this world came to that place. Whereas in this movie, it's like, no, we get to follow Barry making that decision in the first place. So I thought that was cool. Now, in the opening, one of the cameos we get is a CG cameo of the back of Superman. Cavill kind of gets fucked again, unfortunately. But Henry Cavill did apparently shoot a cameo for this movie, apparently more than one scene, and they were clearly cut, which sucks, and I don't really get why, because it's like, this is already a send-off anyway. People clearly were hyped up when they saw, like, no matter your opinion of Black Adam, people were clearly hyped up when they saw him in the post-credit scene, to the point where they used him in the promos and spoiled their own damn post-credit scene. But I was like, you couldn't have at least just had him in. Like, we get to have a send-off to Ben Affleck anyway. This could have been a big send-off to him, but to be fair, we don't know what the scenes were. There are rumors about it, but maybe it just didn't fit with what they had, or maybe they were trying to tease something that they knew, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't tease something that, we're not going to pay off. So I don't know, but there was a CG Superman, the first of the CG Supermen we see in this. Every Superman in this is CG, it seems. So
right.
That was there. And apparently they put this shot. I don't know if you saw this, but they put this shot of Superman looking like he's stopping a natural disaster in promo clips, even. So even that kind of got spoiled. There were not a lot of surprises for me in this movie, thanks to the internet. I'm not someone who seeks out spoilers, but when a ton of you asshole retweet, leakers or put this shit in YouTube thumbnails, it's kind of impossible to avoid. So there weren't a lot of surprises.
Most of it. I knew a lot of, well, how can I say this? I think I got half of it spoiled for me, but I was pretty good about the other half, I guess. I think you had more spoiled than I did. But I mean, our algorithms are a certain way, and it's going to show us certain things, and it's hard to stay off social media entirely. So I think it's just going to happen. I mean, some of that shit, I like ping pong flicks on YouTube, but man, some of his stuff was like, even this like YouTube thumbnail was spoilery as fuck at times. Oh, and one of the biggest spoilers was fucking McFarlane toys, like the Dark Flash or whatever. He's like completely shown on his Instagram like 2 or 3 weeks before the movie came out. It's just like, come on, man. Can we? I know you got to sell these toys, but for fuck's sake, save the spoiler toys for later.
Toy, I will say, seeing the toy doesn't automatically make you think that that's going to be young Barry, though.
That's true.
Unless
I actually
I'm wrong,
was kind of,
it's just
I was kind of leaning
design.
towards that being the case anyway, because there was seemingly no other villain in the movie, so it must have been the younger one. That wasn't even spoiled for me. I was just like, I kind of thought that through on my own.
Well, a lot of people were kind of talking about that anyway, so that was one of the. I'll say this again, like that was probably the number one worst kept secret. Was the other Barry's going to go bad? Like it seems like everyone knew that going in. There was one surprise for me. One of like maybe two in this was that we get a Falcone in this movie. I wasn't expecting this. Batfleck name drops Falcone's son, who's credited as Al Falcone. So this is Alberto Falcone, Holiday, one of the major characters in The Long Halloween. Muschietti manages to beat the Reeves-verse to the punch in making this the live-action debut.
When does he say that?
Of Alberto Falcone.
He's one of the dudes in the beginning?
He's one of the dudes in the beginning. To be fair, the dialogue goes really fast when Batman's explaining to Barry what's happening. He's just like, Falcone's idiot son did this and stuff. Because like part of me is still trying to remember, like, so why is the hospital getting blown up? Like, what happened there? Like, I missed what happened. Because I'm like, it's similar to Spider-Verse, too, where I'm like, there's so much going on that, like, if you miss one line, you don't remember. Like, I don't know how the hospital was like that. Because I missed the line.
You gotta see it again, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. But, yeah, he does say Falcone's son. I'm like, oh, shit, it's Falcone's son. And then in the credits, I saw it said Al Falcone. So I'm like, okay, it's Alberto. Doesn't really fit the comics because Alberto spent most of the time trying to get away from the family business, but whatever. It's a name drop. It's an Easter egg. But Alberto Falcone, they did announce that another version of Alberto Falcone is going to be in the Penguin show in the Reeves-verse, played by actor Michael Zegan. I don't know who played Al Falcone in the movie, The Flash, but whatever. This is an adaptation of a universe that's on its last legs anyway, so I'll allow it. I'll allow a last-minute Falcone into this. But let's talk about this opening sequence then, right? Because from the Flash side, it was really impressive. Like the baby thing, I'm like, yeah, like
yes,
it is. It evokes the sort of Days of Future Past thing with Quicksilver. I might still prefer that scene, but this was still pretty solid. What did you think?
Dude, it's a crackerjack opening. I loved it. And like them babies are falling out of a fucking window in slow motion. I mean, that's kind of, honestly, to me, that's how you do it. I thought it's like you really, I mean, like you got to save anybody for sure, but it being babies, it's a whole other level. And they're just really going there, So I appreciated that. I was just thinking the whole time. I was like, "This is how you do it. This is how you open a movie. This is how you open a fucking movie." I've said time and time again on this show, I need a Bond opening for every fucking movie I ever see, pretty much. Like, so they kind of do that with this, which I thought was great. I think it was great, and I mean, him like having to take eat the burritos and shit in the middle of the thing.
He eats it up in the microwave in midair.
Yeah, in the middle of it, and it's just to see how that affects his Speed Force kind of shit early on too, and it sets up so much while being funny and tense. So, I was just thinking like, how the fuck is he gonna save all these goddamn babies?
Yeah,
and he did.
Which is
of course
he
does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like this. It felt more tense than anything. Honestly, for me, let's talk about this one scene right now, right?
Yeah.
That was more tense than probably anything in Spider-Verse 2. For me, I'm just talking about the tension of tensity, and like just a lot of movies recently. It was just very intense, which I loved. I thought, it was really great, really great intro.
Solid intro as well. Really creative for what they did with that, which is what you would want. You want that type of thing. You want the stuff that Quicksilver was known for in those X-Men movies, but with the Flash and with like a different type of scenario, and that's what worked for this. So that was cool. We get Batfleck in his final action sequence. It seems the action was cool. Let's talk about how he looked, though, because I think you and I agree he looks weird in this movie.
Yeah, his face showing through the cowl is in the uncanny valley, man. It felt like did they make a prosthetic for his face? It just felt so weird. It's CG overlay on his face or something?
I think it's CG overlay because all the set photos show a stuntman. There's not a single set photo of Affleck actually in the suit, at least when he's on the bat cycle. Right?
Not even for close-ups?
Maybe for, I don't even know for the close-ups for the bat cycle, but I think maybe the stuff where he's on the bridge and he's got the lasso of truth around him, I think that's Affleck in the suit. But him on the bike, I think that's most likely CG overlay or something.
That's stunts, so that's a whole other deal.
Which makes sense, but he still has close-ups during that time. And I'm talking about him looking weird in that, because that's what
looks weird. He looks weird the whole time. It just
that's true. Yeah.
And look, we're gonna get to it, I guess, but like I've said before, like I don't notice bad CG generally, but I guess if that was CG overlay, I noticed it this time.
Yeah,
because it's just Batman talking. Like it should have a
right.
If it just shouldn't be CG. Like if it's like an action scene, they're doing shit, and I forgive so much.
Yeah,
I just don't care. But but it's Batman talking. It should just be a close up of Affleck.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened there. It's just so weird.
Also, the nose looked really ugly. Like I know people don't like the Pattinson cowl nose, and I'm like, to me, this looked uglier. This looked way uglier. I don't know what was going on with that either. It sucks too because it's Affleck in blue and gray and doing all this badass shit, and part of me is just like, yeah, but why does his face look like that? So it was distracting.
Action direction though throughout this movie. Yeah. I mean,
in general,
I really can't complain. I mean, Muschietti, he killed it. And by the way, in our screening, Muschietti and his wife, his producer apparently, he says his own name.
That's his sister.
His sister. He says his own name, and it is Muschietti, not Muschietti. So there it is. I liked getting confirmation from the man himself. So
you nailed that too, because you're the one who told me, and so I've corrected it ever since.
I think I heard that from. I think I definitely had heard it, but I don't think I heard it from Muschietti himself. So,
well, there we go.
Anyway, it was correct. Whatever I heard. So anyway, moving forward.
Another thing that people might not notice: Affleck no longer has the voice changer as Batman. They didn't put the filter on that. We've actually got to hear Affleck's natural Batman voice that he probably used on set for the other movies. We just didn't really get to hear it like that. But this time there was no filter. Thankfully, he comes more from the Michael Keaton school of Batman voices than the Christian Bale one, so I think that worked out really well. With this
people just they overthink that. I've said it before. I love this. Like we're back to just simple basics and just do a deeper voice, guys.
Raspy, deep whisper. That's it. That's all you need.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
That's all you need. You're over this voice changer shit. It's just way.
Yeah,
it's way too overthought. It's like the bubble for Aquaman in Snyder's Justice,
right?
In one of those movies, like it's you don't need the bubble. You overthought it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway,
so Batfleck gets into some trouble where he's hanging by the grapnel gun and he's holding Al Falcone, and there's a virus in these virals that might poison everybody, and he ends up getting saved by a lasso, and that probably was the first cheer that we got from the audience was Wonder Woman in this, which, some thought was going to be cut. I think that was a different scene that Gal shot that got cut, maybe something that she had with Henry. But Wonder Woman's in this, and again, thanks to Funko Pops, we knew this. Funko Pops has a Wonder Woman Funko just for this movie. So
that was totally new for me. That was not spoiled for me at all. I wasn't too shocked because it's a fucking superhero movie, but I had no idea she was going to be in this movie going in.
It is a combination of your algorithm being better than mine when it comes to spoilers, and me just being a good friend and not saying shit to you before we go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't generally want to know that stuff going in.
Yeah. So during this, we get the scene that Ben Affleck shared about on a podcast interview where Batman gets caught in the lasso of truth. And even before I saw the movie, when I heard about this, I'm like, people, especially in the Snyder camp, are going to hate that shit because it sounds like a comedic beat, and it is a comedic beat. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate all of it. It's a comedic beat. It's meant to be there. It makes sense that when Batman has the lasso of truth, he's going to say stuff that's out of character. There is a moment where he does the whole thing about like, if I wanted to stop crime, I should have stopped poverty. You know, I hate that shit. It's just one line. I feel like people are going to blow it up if they haven't already by the time this gets released. I'm fine with other characters misinterpreting and representing that side, but if Batman himself believes that when he's under the lasso of truth, I'm like, that's just the screenwriter injecting that. That's not actually what Bruce thinks.
I think it's just so like, what's that for? You know, like for kids are not going to care about that. Yeah. And adults, look, it's 100% true economic wise for sure. But I'm just not looking to superhero stuff for that thing because it kind of undermines the fantasy. It's like he might as well should be saying, I should wear a chin strap or like cover my face entirely. Yeah. It's just kind of not part and parcel to the whole escape fantasy of this thing. In real life, you give me a petition, you give me like somebody to vote for that is going to seemingly or actually will, you know, end or lower poverty to lower crime rate. I'm going to vote for that person. I agree with it theoretically. I agree with it practically. I just feel like it's a little much for Batman in an escapist fantasy. I don't know. It just it does rub me the wrong way.
Yeah. And again, I'm fine with it if it's another character telling him that. Yeah. But I'm like, Bruce believing that himself. I'm like, this is the guy who saved Martha Kent's entire farm by buying a whole goddamn bank. You know, this is the guy who, you know, wanted to take care of all the people in Metropolis after Superman's fight with Zod destroyed everything. Like, he's really going to believe that? You're going to put that in this shit? Because, like, the problem is, like, when you have the actual adaptation of DC saying this, then you legitimize that shit. That's my problem with it.
It just feels like they're trying. I don't know, man. It's just like, who's it for? Who is that?
Yeah.
Who's that line for? We're like,
adults are going to watch it and get users who think that they're smart. Yeah.
Yeah. It drives me nuts. I don't like it either. I kind of wish they'd stop with that. And I don't know, man. It was whatever. He kind of says it off. The camera's not on him, I think, when he says it. It might have even been added in ADR.
Probably. And it's also, it's one of those things that maybe some people listening to this might not have even caught it. Because it's like,
it's very quick.
There's so much going on. Dialogue's going all over the place. Also, Barry gets under the lasso of truth too, so he talks at the same time. And we got the Spider-Verse thing of like 2 or 3 people talking at once. So like it's likely like us who are more sensitive to that hear that and pick up on that, whereas like someone else who saw it is just laughing at the fact that Batman's saying stuff under the lasso of truth and not really remembering anything that he's actually saying. So, you know,
and plus it's like what you've covered before. You covered before on the Patreon and other times. You know, in the comics and in, you know, in other media, he is attacking poverty. Batman's just one front that Bruce Wayne's doing. It's probably his main front, but, you know, like, how mature do you want this to just be a banking and political comic at the end of the day? Like, how mature do you want Batman to be? You know, it's just a little much for me. It takes me out of what they just. I don't know. Anyway, I like Christina Haas did a great job overall. Just We spent a lot of time talking about this one throwaway line.
We had a
but
whole episode on related to this, so I'm like, we have to at least talk about this for a little bit on the episode.
It was annoying, though. I agree. But whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. So that's the end of the opening sequence. Barry finally gets to go to work, finally gets his sandwich. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And we now get to meet a few characters who are actually part of Flash canon, starting with his coworkers. So let's go into it. We have Albert Desmond and Patty Spivot. So let's talk about Albert. Technically, we do have a Flash villain in this movie, and that's Albert. Albert becomes the villain, Mr. Element, a.k.a. Dr. Alchemy, in the comics.
Oh, shit.
So the character of Albert Desmond, according to this note from Dan, was created by John Broome and Carmine Infantino, who also contributed to a lot of the early Flash stuff and were creators. But Desmond first appeared in Showcase number 13 in 1958 as Mr. Element, which they then changed his name to Dr. Alchemy. The character was first adapted in live action, I think, in the CW show under the name of Julian Albert rather than Albert Desmond, and was played by Tom Felton.
I saw this season.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be the same character. If you might remember, like, this character also worked in the crime lab with Barry Allen, and they didn't like each other either in there. Dr. Alchemy himself was voiced by Tobin Bell, most famous for being Jigsaw in the Saw films, but Tobin Bell contributed that season to the voice of Dr. Alchemy and Savitar, who I'm going to talk about later. But that's cool. And then the other is Patty Spivot, who is also supposed to be his coworker in the comics in the lab of Barry. Instead of kind of being somebody who, I don't want to say bullies him because that's a little extreme. She doesn't really do that, but she's not really his friend in this. She's kind of a jerk in it, but in the comics, she's a love interest. So that was different, and they adapted her as well as a cop in the CW show. So that was different. We also get to meet Barry's boss, Director Singh, who is also in the CW show. He was a police captain and stuff, but it's kind of cool seeing their own takes on these characters. It's just, again, everything's fast-paced in this. Deliberately so, but like we barely get much time with anybody with this. If you don't even have your ears out for it, you don't even, like, you might not even remember any of these character names either from that, but that's who we got. And after Barry leaves with his coworkers, he runs into Iris, played by Kiersey Clemons, who was cast by Rick Famuyiwa when he worked on the Flash movie, and then was incorporated into the Snyder Cut from Justice League, was cut from Justice League, but then put back into the Snyder Cut, and then Kiersey Clemons got to be part of this. So it's kind of great that she, after all the turmoils, she survived to be an Iris, because they could have easily replaced her along the way.
Right.
But another thing you might notice, the Snyder Cut is canon to this. Iris does reference Barry potentially saving her, saying that she, could have sworn that she saw him earlier. That's not a scene that's in the theatrical cut. That's in the Snyder Cut. There's also
they reference the better one. So
yeah. So for those who were, because a bunch of people were worried about is Justice League canon versus the Snyder Cut, and I'm like, first off, I don't think it really fucking matters. The universe is dying out anyway, and like for the most part. It was a way better done version, but let's be real. Like, the story is pretty much the same shit happens. They stop Steppenwolf. Superman gets resurrected.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really that much that would have changed anyway. But the movie itself legitimizes it. It references this scene. I also noticed in the Speed Force, it has a shot of Momoa's Aquaman angrily pointing, which is specifically in the Snyder Cut. So that's in there. Ben Affleck's Bruce, I think, references Barry's time travel from the Snyder Cut. It was tough to pick up on that. He and Barry are meeting up outside of Barry's apartment at one point, and Bruce references Barry time traveling, but I also wasn't sure if he was just talking about Barry's story that he had just time traveled. So it could have gone either way. Let me know in the comment section if I missed that. But whatever the case is, the scene with Iris in the Snyder Cut is kind of recontextualized. I think some people felt that Barry was a little creepy in the Snyder Cut by just kind of saving this stranger and creepily looking at her. And Muschietti and Hodgson completely recontextualized it, that they've known each other for years, actually. In college, he had a crush on her, and she kind of had a crush on him. And so, it's sort of just a coincidence that he saved her that day she happened to be driving by. So That's an interesting retcon, I'd say.
Okay.
Casting of Kiersey Clemons, of course, was probably inspired by the casting of Candace Patton in the CW show in making, basically recasting Iris as a black woman. So
Was she not black before the show?
nope. She's
Man.
she's ginger, I'm pretty sure, as well in the comics.
Dude, I don't even see her as ginger anymore. Iris West's just black to me now.
Well, yeah,
Like, that's just how it is.
Again, this is one of those things where I'm like, I'll give Kiersey Clemons credit for what she gave, but it's really difficult, again, when you're playing a character who has been played by someone else for 9 seasons that just ended recently. I mean, again, like, look, we cover superhero stuff. There's so many different adaptations, but like a few weeks ago, I watched the Flash finale. So it's a little weird to jump into that, and maybe I don't know if that's on me, if that's on just the timing of the different things, or if that's really on the movie. I can't really blame the movie on that, but it's you automatically put the people who are doing the movie at a disadvantage. So there's that, and then the last characters who are Flash characters are his parents, Nora and Henry Allen. Now, I gotta say, out of the Flash specific characters, I think the best one was the mom.
Yeah.
She has to be too, because like if you don't care about him saving his mother, this movie does not work at all. So they needed somebody who basically you would want as your mom in this, and I did not expect that they were going to have Nora have a Spanish heritage. I knew there was a Spanish actress who was playing her. That's Maribel Verdú, but I'm not familiar with her, so I didn't know if it was a case where like she was going to have an American accent or whatever. And I suspect a lot of this is because of Muschietti's own Latin origins as an Argentinian, injecting that into there. But I think Nora is one of the best aspects of the Flash-specific stuff here. The other characters kind of get too underdeveloped when it comes to Iris and Albert and Patty and Singh, or even Henry Allen. But like this specific take on the mom, it's emotional. It's different from what we saw on the CW show. But the writing for her and Maribel Verdú's take on this character, these are kind of the unsung heroes of this movie. Again, without that, this whole thing would fall apart, and none of this Keaton stuff and multiverse stuff, none of that shit would even matter if you don't care about this aspect.
She's the heart of it. She's definitely the heart of it, obviously, and jumping ahead a little bit, but a lot actually, but this is a spoiler review, right? Mm-hmm. Woven into a deep dive. But whenever he has to go into slow motion at the end, or, fast speed, and then leave her hand, and then just the act of him putting his head back into her hand, I thought that was incredible. I guess that was easy acting on her part, but she had great she had great presence, and she's so likable, and I mean, could have seen more of her maybe, but yeah, she was great overall.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's also unlikely that they followed the comics with this one, because in the comics, in the Flash Rebirth, the storyline Flash Rebirth, where Jeff Johns did this origin, it was the reverse Flash. It was Eobard Thawne who killed Nora. But this movie's crowded enough as it is. It didn't need reverse Flash in it. They didn't need to explain, this is Eobard Thawne, and he's a yellow suit, and he went back in time and killed her. All that shit. Like, they went with the simpler version that I think, again, is taken from the animated movie, The Flashpoint Paradox, where it's a random home invader. Eobard Thawne does not kill Nora in that animated version. And same thing here. I did think it was weird, though, that... Go ahead. Yep.
So now that we're talking about the killer.
Yes.
So Alex Ramsey from the Flash podcast. I'm sorry, it's a new podcast. What's the name of it?
Flashback, the Flash Rewatch podcast.
Yes, the Flash. Okay. So he brought this up to me off air, of course, and he was like, well, who killed Barry's mother in this? And I was just thinking... I was like, oh, fuck, I didn't even thought about that. Like, the movie pulled one over me, man. But I think that... Hold on, let's go big for this.
Yeah.
So, I think that... So, he wants to be minimally invasive with the butterfly effect stuff. So in the beginning, he is avoiding the killer and just wants to do the tomato can thing. So that's why it's kind of explained away there.
Mm.
But you and I talked also off air about this, and it would have been helped a lot if they at least had a throwaway line talking about, I shouldn't go to the killer. I should just do the tomato cans. Like a real quick mention of the killer. Let's at least acknowledge it and then move on. And then I think by the end of it, because of the insane universe crunching shit that happens, and he saw so many other people die right in front of him, and he was responsible for another Barry dying, even though it's his own mother, and he knows it's a canon event, to use Spider-Verse terms.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an event that has to happen.
Yeah.
I can just kind of see him not caring at that point at the end. I mean, he still cares, but not enough to investigate it further, because it's like he knows it happened. He knows it has to happen. He knows what happens if it doesn't happen, and it's too hurtful to investigate anymore. So just kind of move on from it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on that. But it is very interesting that they never really address who the fuck kills the mother at all, really.
No, and my other thing has to do with before the time travel. Before he knows that he can time travel, there's never an indication, there's not even just one line of whether Barry ever tried to find the killer during his many years, since that tragedy.
Yeah,
it feels like he's just been trying to exonerate the dad without finding the other guy who actually did it. So just one line about how it was impossible, or evidence is outdated, or something about that, because otherwise it seems weird for him to just not ever be curious at all about that. So, but yeah, all your other stuff I agree with too, where it's not something that is part of this specific story. It's not Barry versus the killer of his mom. It's about him just trying to save his parents on that. So I think that they just needed that one line, and that's it.
Yeah, they needed the one line, but if they did skirt the issue, they did. Like, at first I was like, fuck, they should have done that. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, maybe they don't. Considering everything else in the movie. Everything else in the movie just makes it all line up. Really.
Yeah, because I'm just like, we need another 15 minutes or so spent on that, in this movie that's already crowded as fuck. We don't.
Yes.
We don't need the killer stuff. I think it's more. It was weird for it not to be addressed. That's my main thing.
Right.
Just one line. That would be fine.
Yes.
In the comic, Barry seems to save his mom from getting killed by the Reverse Flash, but it all happens off panel. We don't actually end up seeing it.
Okay.
The movie takes a very interesting approach, though, where he does not actually go back and prevent his mom from getting killed by the killer, like we just talked about. He goes back in time to put the extra tomato sauce can into the cart to be minimally invasive, which I really liked, because it sets the tone here of it's about saving his parents, not getting revenge on the killer, that type of thing. It's such a small thing too, that it makes putting a can of tomato sauce back on the shelf the emotional crux of the third act, in a way that you never really see the act of doing that the same way again after seeing that. That is a well done thing, as opposed to just let me stop this other speedster from stabbing my mom. Doesn't really have the same effect.
He's just trying to use the butterfly effect to his advantage, I guess. Yeah, but it's a testament to the little things count also. Yeah. Things like that, and just being minimally invasive, and it all kind of surrounding of this tomato can. Yeah. That was great. It's just really great. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'd say that would be even an improvement over it. Even though, I do like the Reverse Flash thing, but I'm like, there's no room for Eobard in this. I'm okay with Eobard not doing it and not being in this. So
yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine, dude.
Yeah. So Flash does this. He changes the tomato cans, and in terms of putting an extra one back into the cart, and then he tries to go back into present day until he gets kicked out of the Speed Force by the Dark Flash, and he ends up landing early in 2013, and now we're in Flashpoint territory. So here we go.
Right.
we have Barry obviously getting to reunite with his mom, where of course they share a hug. This is pretty much close to what happens in the beginning of Flashpoint, where Barry first realizes in the comic version he doesn't realize he changed anything. He just wakes up and he realizes something's off when his mom is still alive and older than what he remembers. So he reunites with his mom. They share, a lunch together as a family until Barry realizes that there's another version of him. And that's when we get to meet young Barry, who, based off of what we said in the non-spoiler review, I think you liked better than I did on that.
Yeah.
But it is, Barry says he was struck by lightning while interning at the Central City Police Department, which I feel fixes kind of another issue from Justice League. Because if we remember, Barry doesn't get to work in the crime lab until at the end of Justice League. But he's already the Flash. So I think I remember back when we were Superhouse, and I was just the senior Batman correspondent, I was just like, so how did Barry get the powers if he doesn't get the job at the crime lab until after he's the Flash? And everyone else was just like, they fucked up. I remember, I think it was Matt and Stefan. They're like, they fucked up. And once again, Hodgson and Muschietti are just like, no, we have an explanation. He was just the intern at that time. He was not formally working there as a scientist yet because he was too young. And I'm like, okay. This is a nice way to still preserve the police, the police lab, the chemicals, the lightning coming in through the window. They did all that type of stuff. And what I liked about this is that you do an origin movie. I mean, you get to do an origin story without it being an origin movie. Like it's the past version experiencing the origin, but it's not an origin movie. Like he's already the.
That is wild, actually. Yeah,
so cool,
that's true.
That
is true. I didn't think about it in those terms,
awesome.
but yeah. So, like I said before, I had no problem. I like both Barrys. So we saw it with my wife as well, and she made the comment like she thought that they were too different from each other. Like people don't grow that differently. But I'm just saying this. I feel like maybe you got it, but just for other people that maybe didn't get this point, like this Barry didn't go into the past of his own universe.
Yep.
He went into a whole other universe that's slightly in the past compared to his original universe. It gets kind of confusing, I know, but
it's an alternate Barry who got to grow up with his mom, so he didn't have any of the tragedy that makes Barry, our Barry, who he is.
So the personality is just going to be different anyway. I mean, the nature and the nurture is slightly different, right? In this case, so the whole universe is fucking different, and all the Back to the Future jokes and shit. But yeah, I thought I was a fan. I just think that Ezra Miller really he just emotes really well. I just kind of bought the performance.
Yeah, like look, my issues are more with the characterization that the performance enhances rather than the performance of what that character was on the page. So, like, in other words, this is not something that I think is really Ezra's fault, but it's like it feeds into each other, right? Because it's written that way, Ezra plays it that way, and then the scripts that they keep doing keep feeding more and more into that sort of neurotic, eccentric version of Barry that I'm just not as big of a fan of.
So your main issue is his characterization.
It's more characterization than the actual performance, because I'm like, young Barry is super annoying. He's supposed to be annoying. Ezra Miller plays him super annoying. It's a good performance of a super annoying character, but still doesn't change the fact that it's super annoying to me. So I'm like, you do a great job at being kind of this really annoying, spoiled, unlikable version of you, but that's the point. That's the whole reason behind it. So I do like the scene later on where older Barry is just like, you have everything. You have no fucking right to complain about anything. Like in the Batcave, like I did like that scene, calling that.
That was so good, and it kind of sets up their tension even at that point. Yeah. And I was kind of feeling, oh, it's coming. We're already getting there. Like we're starting the tension, because they were like kind of buds for it. Well, I don't know. Well, they were okay with each other at least.
At least okay, yeah.
For a bit, but the characterization's a little off, and I kind of feel like maybe Ezra felt like he just couldn't do a traditional Barry. He had to lean into this version because that's maybe how Ezra is in real life.
Yeah.
And I know that Ezra's an actor. They should be able to play whatever the fuck, but if they thought that this was the best ultimately, I think it was an okay decision. Of course, hardcore Flash fans, are not going to love any characterization that's not exactly like the comics. I do get it, but I don't know. I was personally fine with it mostly.
There's an argument to be had too that because a lot of people in the comments section have brought up hey, the reason why so much of Wally West ends up in Barry Allen is because Barry Allen at the end of the day, in early Silver Age stuff especially, is kind of just a boring character. He's another Boy Scout. He's another guy who will do good type of thing. So I'm like, when I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't really like the take on it, but I can't blame them for having a take, that this is a take on the personality, that hey, this character's kind of doesn't have one in the comics. Here's our version of that. So I'm like, you know what? I won't. While I disagree with the specific decision, you still have the right to make that decision, to inject that personality into it. It's not my personal preference, but it's one where I'm like, I'll give you props for the fact that you did that. Right.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. After young Barry gets his powers, older Barry loses his powers because the powers are sort of transferred through the lightning bolt. So that's why Barry's not able to heal from the tooth thing. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, it must be,
And then, wasn't able to speed around and stuff and has to rely on young Barry, who's then discovering himself. We get this whole other kind of slapstick scene of young Barry fucking up with the speed stuff that I'm like, I get it. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I get why you have that in there. Then we get Zod announcing himself to the world. I did notice one interesting difference is that they did not carry over the mask with the breathing apparatus. They carried over the transparent mask that just shows his face, but Muschietti did not carry over the breathing mask, which is what Zod wears in that "You Are Not Alone" broadcast in Man of Steel. But it's an alternate universe anyway, so you can't even say the continuity is off. I'm just it's an alternate world anyway, so Muschietti can do whatever. We're lucky that he stuck as close to the Snyder aesthetic as he did, because he could have had Shannon in something completely different that looked more like Terrence Stamp's disco outfit.
Well, I mean, there was that one shot where the translucent part was all black and looked like kind of a badass Darth Vader look. It was like Zod standing on some sort of platform. I thought that was fucking sick, dude. That was cool. That was a great shot. Yeah. All the Zod stuff was great, and it's just awesome whenever he says Kara Zor-El, just he's like, he said it,
Yeah, who knew cool. Back in 2013 we'd ever hear Michael Shannon not only come back after getting his neck famously snapped, but come back and say Kara's full name.
Dude, so real quick, since we're here, all these comments talking about Michael Shannon, he said when they first approached him about this movie, he was like, I think I died in that one, didn't I? It's just funny as hell. They have to, of course, explain multiverse shit to him.
You're right,
and then,
but yeah.
And then he has said recently that he likes this movie, but he kind of felt like Man of Steel was deeper, which I kind of get, but this movie is really emotionally deep, dude. Maybe some of the
what he has to play for what he.
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, I guess so.
He doesn't have the same dimensions as a Man of Steel because there's no time. He's not really the main villain of this. He kind of is and kind of isn't. So I get his perspective, but also I'm not even sure if he was given the full script.
Dude, it almost felt like. And this is a good thing, but it felt like the Man of Steel events were almost side-by-side parallel stakes-wise with everything happening between Barry and, I don't know, just Barry trying to, in general, save the universe, save his fuck up. I don't know, it just kind of felt like, well, how can I say this? The Man of Steel stuff felt a little bit less central than what I was expecting to everything.
Yeah,
ultimately.
I liked that because it's hey, it's not a remake of Man of Steel, but with Supergirl instead of Superman. It's that's the universe that has been created from my fuck up. So I like that.
I like how it was handled too. It was different from my expectations, which was a good thing in this case.
Yeah. on the Man of Steel topic, I did nudge you a bit when it came to the flashback scene because this was like one of your ideas.
I was like, I had
Go
this
ahead.
like a few months after Man of Steel came out because everybody was complaining about the, city destruction and stuff, and I was like, what if there were red streaks on the ground, and like he was saving people, and I guess this is an idea, and especially Hollywood writers that know their shit are going to write in, but it was cool to see kind of this thing represented. I was like, oh my God. And then also the fucking Zod line that I didn't like, it was part like somebody else, I think it was, it was said in the comments.
Slight rebellion off Madison, I think.
Yeah. He said he was like, it's probably part of a bigger thing, which it was. So it was just like, it was kind of a nice, pleasant surprise there.
Yeah. No, I really liked this flashback scene of Man of Steel because they went hard with it, with the emotion. He's saving the kid. He covers the kid's eyes and turns him around. I'm like,
oh yeah.
You feel like that could have like somebody's going to do it. When this thing gets released on digital, somebody's going to edit that into the Man of Steel stuff, and it will fit right in terms of the tone, and like just throw in, like, cut out Barry's voiceover, throw in the Hans Zimmer music, and have that plus Bruce running around and shit from BVS, and you have like an intercut, the Justice League witnessing the invasion of Earth from the Kryptonians type of thing. I really like that scene. It's very dark, but I mean it's like, hey, like this. Barry tried to do what he can, and I kind of thought that maybe they were going to try to pay that off later with him actually trying to save the father, because you do actually see the father and the kid later on. When the stuff happens.
Right.
But again, there's a million different ideas in this thing, so like that didn't happen.
So real quick though, the emotional scene of this is like he saves one person, but seeing somebody die in the process was a bit too much, so he kind of just. And look, I'm not thinking badly of him because he's doing his best, but he kind of gives up after that. There's also a fucking world engine affecting the gravity there, right?
Yeah. And he's 18 at this point. Like, and he's just using his powers. He doesn't even have a flash suit. Doesn't even have a proper flash suit at this point. So like it made sense. I wasn't expecting that aspect. I thought it was going to be a little closer to your idea, where like he saved all these people, but like. What he said made sense because I'm just like, oh, well, like it made sense that he would, at that age and in experience, just have cold feet with like continuing. Like I wouldn't be surprised if in this continuity, like he didn't even debut as the Flash until months later because of how traumatic that experience was. Like it makes sense for what they had.
He's a character that is obviously running on the ground. And then you have this world engine that is fucking with the gravity. It was very cool to see how that worked.
Yeah.
And like see it kind of up close, ground level again. Like I think in a lot of Man of Steel shots, I can't remember exactly, but like a lot of it's like kind of farther away, maybe I don't know. But anyway, to see it kind of close up again was cool. Like I don't know how the terraforming's supposed to work there, but still I don't give a fuck. It's cool, and the gravity's getting fucked up, and it makes it to where he fucking can't run.
Yeah,
he can barely run. I guess he hasn't figured out the whole like how to slow down time enough for him,
or like jump from one debris to the next, that type of thing.
Yeah, all that shit that's not figured out yet. So it's like he's kind of like dead in the water in those scenes. So yeah, it does kind of make sense. It was really cool to see how difficult it would be for anybody to save anyone. And I'm not trying to make excuses for Superman and Man of Steel, but
right.
It's just really cool to see. You just really get a sense of how difficult something like that would be.
Yeah. No, for sure. It was probably one of my favorite non-Batman scenes. This and the stuff with the mom, I would say, in terms of stuff that didn't have anything to do with Keaton's Batman. But yeah, I really like this aspect as well, and it's there, so it's great. So during this time, Barry says, like, we got to find a way to stop Zod. We have this whole back and forth thing about Eric Stoltz being in Back to the Future, which is interesting for a number of reasons. One is that Eric Stoltz was originally Marty McFly in Back to the Future and then was replaced by Michael J. Fox. The other one, which is something that I think you wanted to say in the Patreon, which is the fact that Michael J. Fox was considered, or at least rumored to be, up for Barry Allen, the role of the Flash in the early 90s, potentially with the Jeff Loeb script. So that's another Back to the Future Flash connection there. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, very interesting connections.
Yeah, I don't know if Michael J. Fox was really up for Footloose or if Kevin Bacon was up for Top Gun, but in this world that was created, that those are the stars in their actual movies, as opposed to Kevin Bacon being in Footloose and Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer being in Top Gun. So who knows? But Barry realizes he has to track down the rest of the Justice League and gets basically no luck. Wonder Woman apparently never crossed over from Themyscira. Arthur Curry was never born, thanks to a cameo appearance by Tamara Morrison. Victor Stone is still a football star, which is good for Victor, but bad for the world because there's no Cyborg. Superman is, Barry believes, just not around. And Batman still exists, though. And this is similar to Flashpoint, where Barry talks to his mom, and Barry's mom doesn't know who the Flash is, doesn't know who Superman is, but says everyone knows Batman. So this leads the Barrys to go to a cousin's dinner, a.k.a. going to Wayne Manor. And they're going to meet a very different Batman. I'm sure you guys are anticipating my deep dive into this stuff, and we'll dive into that after the break.
All right, everyone. June is a busy month for us, and we have a lot to announce. Some of the stuff is upcoming or has already passed, depending on when you view or when this episode comes out. But I will give the dates and go from there. So, first off, June 17th, both Andrew and I will be on the Flash podcast with Andy. Andy was part of our Flash episode on the Berlanti show, and he's bringing us onto his show live. So the date is June 17th. It will be at 10 a.m. PST, and we're going to give our review for The Flash. It will be spoilers galore, so make sure to tune in if you have seen it, and if you haven't, then go to the theater and watch it first, and then come in and tune in on the YouTube channel. But yeah, we will link that below, but it is under the YouTube channel DCTV Podcasts. So we're looking forward to that. We will be seeing The Flash early as well, and we'll make sure to have our own review and deep dive episode for you guys. So we're excited.
Can't wait.
And then real quick on June 20th, I will be, or already have been, depending on this, on the show Table Read Tuesdays on YouTube, joining actors in a table read of the Sam Hamm 1986 draft for Batman 89, so check that out. And meanwhile, Andrew and I are in a movie. We're in an independent short film called Derek Magnum, playing ourselves, and the movie could use your help. So head on over to, it's now a GoFundMe link in the description, and help them out. Proceeds go entirely to the production for festival costs and not to us. They could use some help there, and check it out. And we had a fun time shooting that.
Yes, it was great. We all know that making a movie is expensive, and we need to support indie filmmakers. So this is one way to do it. So yeah, please go to the website linked here for his GoFundMe.
Nice. So there's that, and then we have a few other plugs, some creative, some mine, some not mine. One of those is to check out a comic book now released called Mark of Death from one of the friends of the podcast, Andrew Pensner. But basically, this is one that is an independent comic that I've read, and it is pretty awesome. So let me read off what it's about. After the deaths of everyone he's ever loved, Mark Thompson tries to end his life only to discover he can't die. Confronted by an eternal order of sociopathic anti-heroes and their serial killer companions, Mark is thrust headfirst into a battle between the forces of life and death. Enlisted into a world of time stealers and death dealers, Mark finds himself a pawn at the center of a brutal war where an evil rebellion has broken every rule in the universe to keep him alive. But why? So, there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of great world building in this type of stuff, and if you want to support independent comics, check that out, and they're a supporter of ours as well. So you can buy this comic from the publisher Bliss on Tap at their website. I'll include the link in the description as well for this month. And I myself will be writing my own comic and crowdfunding soon. The comic is called Alter Ego, and it is a comic
real
series.
Quick, I just wanted to comment real quick. Cover art looks fucking awesome. That's all I got to say.
The art is from Steve Gordon, who worked on X-Men Evolution. So
okay, well there you go. Look at that.
Definitely got some cool stuff.
really cool art. I think it looks great.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So yeah, check that out. And as for my own, it is a comic called Alter Ego, inspired by one of our favorite arcs, Batman: No Man's Land. It's set in a cutthroat Game of Thrones style world where 5 families of supervillains rule over the vast wasteland of a post-apocalyptic city. These villains include the Kaiser, who is a telekinetic tyrant who leads the 5 families, the Host, a telepathic vampire who feeds off people's pain as he inflicts mental torture, and the Collective, a self-duplicating army of the same women, each with different personalities and skill sets. At the center of the story is the main character, Jace, who's a henchman, whose main purpose seems to be to protect and enforce for the 5 families, but in reality, he's actually there undercover to take them down and kill them all. So, hence the title, Alter Ego. Character art here is by Danielle Moses, who's one of our supporters who provided the voice as Catwoman in our episode where we reenacted deleted scenes from Batman Returns. So she's also an artist, and you can find her on Instagram at FayAndFamiliar. I'll include the handle as well. But I'll let you guys know when the crowdfund link is ready to go soon, but this is just kind of the putting the feelers out on what it is, kind of like what Andrew did with his project, which I don't know if you want to talk about now, but
we don't have a slide for it, but Amino Recon has changed into Metal Force. We just thought that'd be a better name ultimately, and it is no longer a series, but rather will be a feature-length movie, and the Kickstarter is still gonna be coming soon. We just have some final things we need to figure out as far as that is concerned, but we could also link that in the description, I guess, and check it out. Metalforce.ninja is the URL. So
sweet.
Yeah, metalforce.ninja. So yeah, check us out there, please.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then for our charity, we usually have a charity run for each month, and this month is very relevant to us, and it's the Hero Initiative. So I'll let Andrew introduce that to everyone.
Okay, so I mean, basic pitch here, guys, is that this is like a GoFundMe specifically. I mean, it's not GoFundMe, but it's like a GoFundMe. It's GoFundMe-esque, and it's called the Hero Initiative, and this is about sending donations to comic book creators that are essentially in dire straits at the moment, with medical bills and things like that. So we're doing a charity where, we sponsor, well, I wouldn't say sponsor, we're shouting out a charity every month, and this is the one for this month. So yeah, if you could go to heroinitiative.org/be-the-hero, but it's be-the-hero. So heroinitiative.org/be-the-hero, and check that out. We have it linked also in the description and in the video as well. So yeah, just check it out. And if you can donate a couple bucks, that'd be good. That'd be great. Because these guys and gals, when I say guys, it's pretty much like non-gender. But anyway, these guys and gals, they have given us a lot over the years with their creative works, and now they just have some health issues, so and need a little bit of help from us now. So yeah, if you could go on over there and help out, that'd be great. Just wanted to announce that I have a new podcast called Gaming Gaiden. It's about Japanese to English translation. In this first season, it will be 10 episodes each season. If you saw the ranking, every Superman video game two-parter we did here on Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you have seen Mike before. So yes, if you like video games, if you've been interested in Japanese ever, we're going to be talking a lot about just Japan in general, Japanese cultural differences as well, and we also are going to have a lot of talk about 90s video game magazines such as Electronic Gaming Monthly, aka EGM. So stay tuned for Gaming Gaiden podcast. It's already out now, y'all. I wanted to tell you about the patreon.com, patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and on that you get the $1 tier, You can join the $1 tier, which gets you the shout out on the board, and either visually or orally, or both at times. We want to do the oral for the most part for newer people. And then the $5 tier gets you a whole new show. This show is every Monday, as you well know, and it's free on YouTube and the What's Nots. And the Patreon show is every Friday at the $5 tier mark. You can, if you want, binge us for $5. And there's like 150 episodes, almost 150 at this point. And you can, listen to all that content there. Even the stuff that's been released from the vault, none of that has been the full episode as well. So, trying to keep our $5 tier people happy. But yeah, check that out. And then our $10 tier gets you all of the above, plus it gets you a monthly meetup show where you meet up with us monthly, and it's like a Zoom-like call, and we have a topic at hand, or sometimes videos we react to and things like that. And that's at the $10 tier. Every tier that you get, like the $5 tier gets you the $1 tier benefits, and the $10 tier gets you the $5 tier benefits and the $1 tier benefits. So check that out at patreon.com/superherostuffpod. We also got the merch, which is Redbubble, superhousepod.redbubble.com, and on Threadless, superherostuffpod.threadless.com. Get your Bin Man and Indeed Wizard mug, shirt, shower curtains, and all the rest artwork by Stephen Santa Cruz. And please send us some audio at superhousepodcast@gmail.com. A bumper would be great. You too can be part of the show. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. Thunderwolf lives as my other YouTube channel, one of my many YouTube channels. And I have also thunderwolfdrew.com has my whole portfolio in one place, except for amanorecon.com. That's AMANORECON.com. And that is an original idea that some friends and I are doing, where it is R-rated Power Rangers meets Stranger Things. That's the quick pitch, and it is not a fan film, original idea. We have a pitch video right now on YouTube and on the Indiegogo page. We're campaigning right now as of this, when this episode premieres. And this poster art is by ZacharyJacksonBrownArt.com. And check it out. Please support us on the campaign, and more from that soon. But yes, it's bloody, and if you like that kind of thing, check us out. And that's it, Ben.
Follow us on social media, on Twitter at SuperhousePod, Instagram Superhero Stuff Pod, where we have some different supplemental stuff. I've even analyzed the martial arts stance that the Keaton ornament from the Flash is in, so you can check that out on our Instagram Superhero Stuff Pod. TikTok, Superhero Stuff Pod, Vero, Superhero Stuff Pod. My website is benwanwriter.com, where you can read a whole bunch of spec scripts, including Gotham, Vampire, Elementary, The Death of Sherlock Holmes, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, Disneyland. If you're fans of any of those shows, check them out and let us know what you think. My YouTube channel is in the description below, including Doctor Who, The Ronin of Time, an audio drama I write, edit, and narrate with the 8th Doctor, meeting Miyamoto Musashi. My personal Instagram is benwanwriter. If you like cats, my son, Alfie, my cat, is at Alfie Pennyworth Cat. And if you have an Alfie yourself, then you can get the Whisker Box, the only cat box for the crazy cat lady and gent. And you can even check out another page on that website, superherostuffpod.com/show notes. That includes various show notes for each of our episodes, links to the scripts that we review if they're available online, Amazon links to the stuff we've been talking about, including, Brian Levant's book that he plugged for us, My Life and Toys. So check that out at superherostuffpod.com/show notes.
Lord have mercy, y'all. Do you like hounds? Do you enjoy pooches? Do you find yourself enjoying time spent with that of canines? Talking about dogs, y'all.
As you might have heard, Superhero Stuff You Should Know has now teamed up with BarkBox. For every month, you get a box for your special canine.
Pooches.
Or hounds.
That's right. One free extra month if you go to barkbox.com/superherostuffpod.
Follow the link and you'll get a free extra month valued at $35 and valid for all multi-length plans.
So get the BarkBox for your hound, for your pooch, for your canine.
Your doggo will thank you.
The proof's in the pudding.
And we're back, and so is a certain Dark Knight. So here we go. The Barrys arrive at basically a decrepit Wayne Manor, which of course is similar to Flashpoint, where Barry visits a very similar looking version of Wayne Manor when he arrives there trying to find Bruce Wayne. This next shot, it seems to be deleted. This is from a trailer. I threw this back in here. It's the main staircase. We did not get to see this, though. I don't know if they threw this in... Well, I mean, clearly they shot it, but I think maybe it was just for the trailer. I don't know. But instead
it wasn't just for the trailer, probably. They just shot a bunch of shit, and it was just cut in the edit, All the first cuts, cool, as we know. Yeah, they just had to trim some scenes. That's just what happened.
Yeah. Between this and what we actually saw, I'm glad this was cut, because what we did see was the armory room from 89.
Yeah, that was sick.
I was not. That was one of the few surprises in this, especially Keaton specific, because I'm just like, oh shit, it's the armory room. It's different, but it's also, we got to keep in mind, like, it's chronologically, it's been 30 plus years since 89. You don't think this guy's going to have some differences in his house at that point? So
he's rich, dude. He can move. Yeah. He can change a bunch of shit real quick.
Yeah. I was talking to Logan Wood, one of our Patreon patrons, who agreed with me that it felt like it was more from the 89 aesthetic in general than the Batman Returns Wayne Manor. So it does feel that way, but it's still different. The outside is different. I think it is a different house than the one that they used for Wayne Manor in 89. The armory room is a little different. The kitchen is bigger, where they have that action sequence set to Chicago, which I really liked.
Yes, we have more added to Batman canon as to what what music Batman likes, which is Chicago.
Yes, Keaton,
which is that's funny,
listens
man.
To Nirvana. Keaton listens to Chicago, which really I think fits their respective Batman.
But it's all great music, though. It's not like I'm not going to say any. I'm not going to say any stuff I don't like. But anyway, great choices all around.
Yeah, but some might think like, oh, this is proof that this is not the same continuity as 89 and Batman Returns, because Wayne Manor is different. To which my response is, dude, Wayne Manor is different between 89 and Returns. So, like, they weren't really into continuity at the time in this. Let's give them credit for at least, like, we didn't have to have Keaton back. And with Keaton back, we didn't have to have stuff that stuck this close to the aesthetic. We didn't have to have the armory room either. So, like, yeah, it's different. But, like, they have it in there. We get to see Barry Allen's reaction to the armory room from 1989. How insane is that? So
it's insane. The multiverse is based on the idea of infinite universes, right? Yeah. So this could be a universe that very closely resembles the Batman 89 world, but is not exactly that world. It still has some changes, probably. So it's I know the multiverse stuff is maddening, but it's like almost literally have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can just do whatever. Like, there's like no really rules with the multiverse. You don't you have total freedom. That's why comic book writers have gone insane with this theoretical idea in, I think, theoretical physics, I would assume. So when real quick, this is gonna be a very quick sidebar, Ben. Let's go big for this. When I was a kid or a teenager or something, I would, you would watch, theoretical physics documentaries or whatever the fuck, Michio Kaku, all these guys, Stephen Hawking, and they would talk about, like, it was called M theory, which the M stood for multiverse or mother or membrane. They were like, whatever one you want. It could be called whichever one you want. Like, every universe is a membrane or something. And they would always say something like, there could be a universe in which you have a caterpillar for a mustache. you know, or where you have a green mustache or whatever. And it was just to illustrate the point that with an infinite amount of universes, there's an infinite amount of variation, and there's just a strange one out there where you have a green mustache, or, you know, shit like that. I don't know.
Right.
And it just feels like ever since then, I assume anyway, comics writers saw all those same documentaries, read those books the documentaries are based on, and just went fucking nuts with the multiverse idea. Maybe it was before that with Final Crisis and shit, but it's just, you know, it just really fits the comic thing because you can, again, have your cake and eat it too. And end sidebar, Ben.
Well, the first was the Flash comics, where they revealed, like, hey, the previous Flash is on a different Earth, and there's this multiverse type of thing. And then eventually that evolved into Earth 3, where, like, the Justice League is actually bad, and the villains are good, and that type of stuff. But
Right.
I think, it, like you said, like, when more stuff came out and there's more documentaries, now you've got, like, the Jeff Johns era of writers being like, shit, we can do whatever the fuck we want, and adding more and more to it. But, yeah, like, I know a lot of you guys asked us, like, do you think this is actually in continuity with 89 and Returns, or is it just like, is he just like a variant version or a doppelganger version of Keaton? And it's exactly as I suspected. It's up to you. It's open-ended.
Yeah, definitely.
I personally choose to believe it's a possible future for Keaton. And he clearly did go through some version of 89 based off of something we see later that I really loved. But it is not necessarily the future. And I'm a proponent of this too. You know, I've announced that for Newverse Creative, who does the audio dramas for unproduced, you know, superhero scripts, I wrote 2 audio dramas for them. One is the Batman 89 comic adaptation. The other is the original Batman Forever script. And Ian Miller, one of our guests, is adapting his Batman Enigma comic that he wrote with Eric Elliott. And that's 3 different takes on technically the same story, which is a third Batman movie where Keaton's Batman meets Robin. It's got different villains and variations, but all 3 have Keaton's Batman meeting some version of Robin or Nightwing or Dick Grayson or Drake Winston. You get to choose which continuity you like best. Maybe you like the Batman 89 comic. Maybe you like a version of Batman Forever that happened with him. Maybe you like Batman Enigma from, you know, Ian and Eric. But you get to decide. It's not as locked in. He's kind of the choose your own adventure Batman, funny enough. He's not as like locked in continuity wise as most of all the others, you know, and I think there's something really cool about that. So it's up to you.
So I agree with all that, but I think that it's, for me, when people bring this kind of stuff up, okay, so I know you're just having a fun conversation and it kind of like, you know, you're not taking it too seriously, but then other times I think people are taking it, some other people are taking it too seriously and kind of get caught up in the weeds of all that, of like, is it canon or is it not? And I'm just thinking, does this being canon or not affect your emotional output or emotional reaction to anything in the movie? To me, these stories are it's about the emotions, man. But I mean, seriously though, like, it's just not going to affect the emotional beats too much for me. So it's just, and also I've said it a lot of times, I'm just not a big world building guy. I mean, I liked Krypton and stuff, but I'm not. I don't know, dude. It's just I think other people sort of like really get into the world building of Tolkien and like other kinds of shit where it's like, to me, I think I'm a little bit more character focused.
Yeah.
Generally.
I've discovered this too, right? Where I was like, at some point I was like, let me put together like my ultimate Batman continuity. And it's like got all my favorite versions of all the different characters and stuff. And like, maybe like a day into it, I'm just like, this is fucking stupid. Because I'm like, okay, which version of Joker's origin do I like? I'm like, I like 4 or 5 of them. Which one am I going to choose? I'm like, wait, why do I have to choose? Like, why do I have to make and choose? Like, which one is in my specific continuity? Like, the funny thing about being a Batman fan is that there's so many different variations that I feel like the more, this is biased on my part, but I think the more knowledgeable you are, the more you're appreciative of all the different versions. The less knowledgeable you are,
that's normal.
You know, like it's so I'm like I don't need to do this. I don't need to come up with the ultimate continuity. I know what I like, you know, and what I don't like, and I'll just stick with that. And I don't need them to all fit together in one story because they don't fit together in one story. I can't take like the Telltale Joker origin and plug it into the Batman continuity from Reeves and have him show up and like it just doesn't really like why the fuck do I need to do that? I don't. I can just enjoy them as they are. So like whether this is in continuity or not, or it comes down to do you enjoy it or do you not? Do you enjoy it? Sure, it's canon. Do you not like what they did with Keaton? All right, fine. You can just stick with Batman 89 and Batman Returns and pretend he has a different future. Like it's fine. Just do what you pick the canon. You're the fan. These characters don't exist. Remember? So you can pick whatever the fuck.
Yeah, that's remember? Right. Yeah, exactly. No, it's just like look, I respect it. I respect the world building. A lot of people are about that. Like look at Star Wars, Star Trek, you look at like a lot of shit. And I do like it. I do appreciate it. But I think my main difference here is for me. I'm not saying I'm different from you, Ben. I'm just saying I'm different from probably other fans. Is I think I personally just kind of focus on the world building a little bit less than other people seem to. Like some people seemingly like want to study, how long Bantha's intestines are. In Star Wars, it's like, dude, where does it stop, man? And then not be interested in any real animal, just the fake ones. so like, I just find a little bit. It's again going back. Who pumps a Batmobile's tires? Who gives a fuck? It's a Grant Morrison school. Like it will come into play. It's important whenever that stuff affects the emotional character stuff for me. Mm-hmm. And it is fun that they're in their own world. Like Gotham is cool, 100%. But I don't know. Anyway, let's move on.
All right. So other things they do come across while they're listening to 25 or 624. They do find some paintings, and they also find that Bruce has been cracking into that wine cellar and stuff. Now, some people will again say this is sacrilege because in '89, Keaton's Bruce said, "Hey, one drink and I'm flying." But I would say this is actually another reference to The Dark Knight Returns, where Bruce drinks wine when he's retired. Remember, this version of Keaton has retired from crime fighting right now.
Right.
And this is one of the things that I pointed out. Like, hey, like people bring up or criticize Batfleck and BVS for drinking. But Zach, when Zach was on our show, brought up like, yeah, but my issue with Batfleck drinking is that he's not retired. He's on the job, So
right.
The idea of him drinking when he's not Batman feels a little more excusable to Zach, and to a lot of us who are attached to Bruce being somebody who who doesn't drink. So here it's done like in The Dark Knight Returns, where he's drinking wine when he's bearded, long-haired version of Bruce Wayne. But you don't see him touch a drop once he's donned the suit after that. So that was
out of retirement.
Yeah, but we still meet the retired Bruce during the kitchen fight, which was pretty sweet. That was one of the things I was not expecting. That's probably the one fight that Batman's in that we didn't see anything in the trailer. So I'm glad we got that. We do get a close look at Bruce Wayne, who has long hair and a beard. This seems to keep into the tropes lately with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, of James McAvoy's Xavier in Days of Future Past. But I still kind of liked this, a Bruce Wayne who's let go of being Batman and has grown a beard. We saw that in The Dark Knight Rises, and is also in Scott Snyder's run of the New 52 for very complicated reasons that I won't get into because we want to talk about Flash, but it's something that's been done that this may or may not have been a deliberate reference to. But something that I feel is a deliberate reference is that Bruce wears throughout his civilian guise this cloth around his neck that just really feels like their take on the Adam West ascot to me.
You gotta have the ascot. My God.
Where I'm like, okay, like he doesn't wear the turtleneck and the glasses like in the Burton version, but there are definitely aspects of Adam West into this. So.
And he's wearing a cardigan, different cardigans throughout of it, which look. Let's just talk about Bruce Wayne's fashion for like 5 hours. No, but I liked it. I thought it was good. It's totally fine. Yeah, I didn't notice that, dude. That's cool. Yeah, the ascot. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, kind of. Kind of the ascot there. So during the discussion in the kitchen, there's something that I think is controversial to some people, where Bruce brings up like Gotham doesn't need me anymore. It's one of the safest cities in the world. And I think, again, to some people, that's sacrilege. Gotham should always be a shithole. And I'm like, this is a Bruce who's retired. The only scenario I can see where Bruce is okay being retired is when Gotham City is one of the safest places in the world. Like, that shows that Batman was actually effective.
That's true, dude. His
Yeah.
crusade was successful.
Yeah. Like,
For fuck's sake.
It feels off to me in things like Dark Knight Returns and Batman Beyond, where Bruce just lets the city go to shit around him. You know, like in Batman Beyond, like, yeah, he was pushed to the point where he pulled the gun in the Batman Beyond pilot, and he felt he couldn't be, effective anymore as Batman because he'd have to cross the line in order to stay alive, and he didn't want to do that. That's fine, I get that. But then he didn't have any successor at the time. He didn't have any sort of protection. He didn't do the Kingdom Come thing where he had like drones and stuff. He kind of just lets the Gotham City go to shit and have his company get bought out by a criminal. Like, that doesn't feel like Bruce to me.
Right.
For all my issues with The Dark Knight Rises, and I had a lot with that one, it at least made sense that Bruce was okay being retired when crime was down and being retired when the Bane threat was done. Like, he wasn't needed. He was still itching to come back when there was a crisis.
And a protege was on the way.
That too, at the end.
Right.
But even in the beginning, right? Like, yeah, he's hobbling around in the cane and the beard, but they're just like, this is peacetime. The Harvey Dent Act, through whatever magic the Harvey Dent Act did, like, clean up all the streets. I'm like, this is the only scenario where I see Bruce being okay with just chilling in the Manor and doing paint and, listening to Chicago. Like, that's the only scenario. So,
bro, Chicago making pasta that looked really good.
Yeah, that's
drinking wine, wearing a cardigan and an ascot. My man was living it up alone though, but still.
But he deserved it. He deserved it because he cleaned up Gotham City. So like, I'm like, I have no issue with the fact. Maybe it's it's the fact it's underdeveloped. Maybe that I think could be a little bit more of an issue, or could have just been smoother if he was just Batman already. But again, like, that's the only scenario that I see where Bruce is okay being retired. So I like that aspect. You could also interpret that his Batman is kind of a combined version of other Bruces in the universe. There are certain things that, as we saw, that are inevitable when it comes to the different characters. But, he clearly had some Adam West with the ascot, and another aspect I'm going to go into later. There are some elements of Bale, too.
So real quick.
Go ahead.
I feel like we're leaving this part of it, but since we're still in the kitchen scene for a moment, Alex, again, brought up, he personally didn't like how Bruce was so knowledgeable about the multiverse, but for me, I had no problem with that because it's well established throughout all of comics and everything ever that Batman is very knowledgeable about damn near everything.
Yeah.
It's just how he lives his life, dude. He's a quick study and learns shit real quick, and you know what I mean? Like, I just, even though he's not an actual theoretical physicist, it's just something, I don't know. It's fine with me. Plus it's been 40 years since fucking 89. So it's just like,
right.
He's had time to study, dude. And Gotham's cleaned up. Like, it's just, I don't know.
He had time to read.
I'm bringing that up because there might be more people like Alex out there.
True.
Because I think you agree with me on this point also.
I do, because the multiverse is not something the comics, like, it feels to us as comic fans that the multiverse is something that the comics came up with. But comics just dramatized an existing theory about the multiverse. It's an actual theory. And so Bruce Wayne, being someone who studies science and stuff, like, he would know about that stuff. Like, I feel like there are people out there who aren't into comic book movies, but they know about the multiversal stuff. And I think that would be Bruce, where he would know
100%
that stuff. So, yeah, again, it makes sense to me, especially for retired Bruce. Like you said, like, I didn't even think about that. Like, he's painting, listening to Chicago. Like, he's got a whole library that we saw there. You don't think he's, during his retirement, not read through every single goddamn book that's in there at least twice, or memorized the contents? So, like, it makes a lot of sense to me that he would know.
It's not I don't see it as an issue. And unlike script-wise, I need somebody to point it out to the Barrys. So, and who better than it to be Bruce Wayne? So, the guy that is generally the smartest guy in the room.
It also establishes him as Bruce Wayne, Like, he fought them, so he got the Batman side of it, but, like, they also, Barry says, like, he's the strategist, he's the guy we always need and stuff. Like, that says, like, hey, like, I'm not Ben Affleck, but I'm still Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
the
man.
fact that he's knowledgeable about that stuff. So, so that was cool. And then during this, we can kind of see, like I said, like some elements of Christian Bale in that. His Batcave can be accessed through a well. That seems like it's from the Nolan movies. He has a waterfall in the cave. Also feels like Nolan. And like Christian Bale, he's also retired in Wayne Manor as a bearded recluse where Gotham's all cleaned up. So there's some elements in there too.
That's true. That's true.
The Barrys sneak into the Batcave. Love this part. Young Barry does get to see the Batmobile. I will say it's one disappointing element to me. I get that it didn't fit the story. The Batmobile does not get used. It's a prop. It's just a bed for young Barry to sleep in. I was like, and I had a feeling too, because like you don't see it drive anywhere in the trailers, and you would think that if it was in the movie, they would promote the shit out of that, considering how much they've used Keaton's Batman. But it was more of a showcase for the Batwing here, and it makes sense for this story. But
Hodson probably thought about it a lot. And
how do I get this in? Yeah,
yeah, and it just didn't fit, man, with what they had, you know. But the Batwing having a goddamn roll cage kind of thing, that was real sick, dude. I actually didn't see that in the trailer, that aspect of it.
I didn't either.
Like that roll cage aspect of it was really sweet.
The Batwing, just to skip to the Batwing, like I know design wise we still prefer 89, but functionally that thing was the best. Like functionally,
it was cool.
He clearly upgraded since 89. You know, he's not missing any of his targets this time. He's not missing Jack Nicholson in the middle of the street with this technology. Like he's clearly upgraded his shit at this point, and taking out Kryptonians with them, which is insane. Who knew that we'd ever see Keaton come back and fight the 2013 Man of Steel Kryptonians out of his retirement? So that was awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so wild.
So another big surprise for me, during this Batcave sequence, we get a cameo that is better than any of the other cameos that we got throughout this, and it was the Joker bag, the laughing bag. I think you saw my mouth drop open when that happened, because I was not expecting that shit. And the fact that Barry squeezes it, and it has the same exact laughing sound effect from the 89 film.
It's incredible, yeah. Our theater was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, like I might be pissed about the other spoilers. I'm glad nobody said this shit. And to be fair, like it's more of a deep cut thing for 89 fans than like, you know, Christopher Reeve has a CG cameo type of thing. But still, like I'm fucking glad that I did not know that this happened and they had it, because I'm like, are they ever going to really reference like maybe Joker, Penguin, and Catwoman? Probably not. You know, some people thought that Michelle Pfeiffer might show up in it. I didn't think she would, and she didn't.
Yeah.
But this was like the closest thing. This is like the next best thing if you can't get those actors in this. So that was cool.
I think so. Just real quick about talking about the Easter eggs. A lot of people like kind of hate the overuse of Easter eggs, but for me, as long as it's kind of woven in, I'm mostly fine. As long as it's Barry just kind of fucking around in the goddamn Batcave.
Yeah.
The young Barry, and then all the other ones kind of show up in. We knew they were going to show up in the Speed Force shit. Like it's just. To me, was pretty organic, all the Easter eggs. If they like go way out of the goddamn way, then yeah, I wouldn't like that. But it was very, it was handled well, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. I think so too. So we got that, and we also got an Alfred reference. We didn't get. I wondered if we were going to get a photo of Michael Goff. We didn't though. But we got a pen with Alfred's name on it. It went by too fast for me to read what was on there. So let me know what was on there.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for this thing to show up on, I guess, Max is what it's called, and just pause when the subtitle. I mean, when the pen is there, so I can read what it actually says.
Right.
But that was cool. But Bruce hears this in the study, and he seems to be in a study that looks again similar to the one in '89. If we take a look and compare the bookcases, like that, look at that shit. So that's pretty close. Bruce talked to Alfred in '89 in the study about how Jack Napier was still alive. Bruce is now listening to Barry, where Barry brings up that, his Bruce also had an Alfred, and Bruce decides to suit up again, opens a retinal scan behind a picture of his parents, and gives us this great shot from the trailer that the only, this is badass, this is great. I'm kind of tripped up that this is the Batcave entrance. This is the first thing he sees. I guess he suits up before he goes to the rest of the cave, but most of the time, you'd expect it to lead to the cave, not like some room that then leads to a cave. But I also kind of don't give a shit at the same time because it's so fucking cool. So like it's
right.
It's
I hadn't even
it did
thought
throw me
about
off.
that, dude. I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought about that. Yeah, maybe the suit should have been more in the cave, but
Yeah, but it's a cool ass shot. It does feel like
Yeah.
something out of Greg Capullo here. And again, super heavy. The storyline that Scott Snyder wrote, where Bruce Wayne is retired, has a beard. When he gets out of retirement, he also looks into this vaulted costume. It's in a very similar shot that we see here, and the caption says they need their Batman back. So that's pretty awesome. But
Nice.
yeah, we've gone over the different suits as well in the trailer breakdowns that we've done. So check those out. For that, we did have a bigger look at them in the Hot Toys exhibition, but I'll cover that more in the Patreon and stuff since we're mainly focused on the movie. But it is really cool that we basically got this. There's a lot of callbacks throughout that are obvious. We get the Danny Elfman theme, of course. We get Batman saying, "I'm Batman." We got, the Batwing, which is its own thing, but it's still in the aesthetic of, Anton Furst and Julian Caldo. We got Batman not using a parachute, using a glider from Batman Returns. We do have a grapnel gun that does look a little different from the handle. It was hard to tell, though, because it's so dark, but the hook is definitely the same. The bronze hook on a black grapnel gun, that aesthetic is still there. And during the fight, when they go fight the government people, the Batarang is still the same Batarang, designed from '89.
and he's
So-
using the grapnel not just to
does the
climb
Arkham
up
Claw
buildings. He does the Arkham Claw thing, which is, dude, that was fucking fucking ruled. Honestly, that again, me and Muschietti, dude, I feel like we're on the same fucking page, dude, with a lot of shit. Like that's out of all the fucking shit in the goddamn utility belt. What are the grab? Well, I guess it's depends on what version it is, but it's either in his gauntlet or in the belt line, right? But like at any rate, like after the Batarangs, the grapnel gun is like number 2, right? Like out of his arsenal. Then maybe smoke bombs. So, yeah, it was like, that's easy. That should be your decision. That's what you use tactically in this fight, other than your Batarang. So, God, dude, I thought that was really good. I was eating that scene up, dude. So good.
I wanted so much. Like, this is one where I'm just like, the warehouse scene is like 5 minutes. I just wanted straight up 5 minutes of just Keaton kicking everyone's ass like that, doing Arkham Claw stuff. Because like when you played Arkham and then when I played Arkham, I never really thought like, oh, like someday I'm going to see Michael Keaton return the suit and pull off the Arkham Claw suit with the Anton Furst fucking grapnel gun with the bronze hook. Like I never thought in a million years that would ever happen. And last night you and I watched it on an IMAX screen. So it's like this is the best timeline,
dude. This is we're back to the best timeline. Yeah, for sure. The only thing that would have made that better was him throwing a smoke bomb down. He didn't, right? I don't think he did. There was maybe some use of existing smoke.
He might have. This is why we got to see it again.
Yeah,
The
it's
other
a lot
thing
happening.
The other thing I got to be on the lookout is like I'm not sure if this movie added to any kill count to either Affleck or Keaton. And with Keaton, I would only include human beings. I won't include Kryptonians because I feel like that's different.
Right.
At that point. But he may or may not have killed some of the government people down there, especially with the bomb. But I don't know if that was... It seemed like the bomb... we'll get into that in a bit, but bomb was mainly to set off the elevator to go up, not necessarily to blow up the entire level, but we didn't exactly see much of what happened after they went back up. So I don't know.
I didn't really think about that, but I don't think he did, but because I feel like that would have set off my bat radar, but
Same here. Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's just ambiguous enough too. But let's go into another sequence similar to Flashpoint where Barry teams up with Batman to rescue a Kryptonian held hostage by the government. So this happens in the comic, but some major differences. One is that in the movie, it's 2 Barrys. In the comic, it's Batman, Flash, and Cyborg. But Cyborg's not in this version. In both, the Kryptonian is emaciated due to lack of sun exposure, but this time, It's Kara instead of Kal-El, who, as we find out later, was killed by Zod. So let's see. When we get to the elevator, there is one obvious callback and one not so obvious callback. The most obvious callback, of course, is the "How much do you weigh?" callback from 1989.
Yes.
You knew they had to throw that in there. Notice, though, he upgraded his grapnel because he did not have to ask Barry that when he brought him up to the top when they were outside in the
right.
snow. He didn't ask Barry about that, but he had to ask them that for this so he could set this. Here is the other one.
That measuring tape, dude. That was the shit, bro. That was good, man. I was a fan of the measuring tape.
It did make me feel like I should carry around measuring tape from now on, just in case.
Measuring tape and duct tape, dude. Yeah.
But yeah, there is another reference that I just did not know about because I hadn't seen the episode. I have not seen every episode of Batman 66, but one of our patrons, Logan Wood, hinted to me before seeing it, like, hey, there is an Adam West callback. Let me know if you catch it. And I'm like, well, it's the ascot, right? And he's like, no, it's not that. And I'm like, well, what is it? And he described it to me, and I'm like, I didn't see that episode, so there's no way I could have caught it. But I watched the episode, and Logan sent it to me. He's absolutely right. So in the movie, Keaton's Batman attaches a device under the elevator to sort of launch it up. It's like an explosive to launch it up.
Yeah.
This likely is a reference to Batman 66, the episode The Cat and the Fiddle, where Adam West supercharges the elevator in the exact same way.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah. He calls them the Bat Jets. They're thrusters that he puts on the elevator after Julie Newmar's Catwoman disables the elevator. So he puts them on there and he launches himself up to the top so that he can stop her. Great callback, if true. Seems like way too coincidental if it wasn't deliberate in some way. But, who knows? But the fact that there's the ascot, the fact that Adam West does actually show up in this movie in, CG form for like 2 seconds, does tell me that this likely was deliberate. There is some, Batman 66 love in this as well.
I gotta get an ascot, dude, and a cardigan.
Next episode.
Yeah,
Next
I know,
episode,
right?
you gotta show up like that.
Like, you're so much more fashionable than you used to be. Yeah, just copying Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. It's just me in a Batman shirt on my side of the camera. But yeah, much like Flashpoint, Flash and Batman get caught trying to break the Kryptonian out and are nearly shot down by the guards until the sun recharges that Kryptonian. And in both versions, either Kal-El or Kara end up saving them and also using a lot of lethal force on the guards there. So that's right out of Flashpoint, just with Supergirl instead of Superman. Another thing to note here is Keaton's pose here with the sort of having his hands up. This feels like a callback to a deleted scene in Nexus Chemicals with his, look, your hands being up, that's very common pose, but still, like, we actually did get a version of that in a cutscene of 89 where he pretended to surrender to the cops only to throw gas pellets. Not in the final film, but a cool reference if that was what they were going for. So that was cool. Back at Wayne
It really
Manor,
felt like they were shit out of luck. Like, and Batman does not know what Supergirl's about to do. He's in this. I assume anyway that he has no idea what's about to happen. He's never seen a Kryptonian before, so
I think he suspected though.
You think?
I feel like he suspected because he said when he says "try not to die," you notice like when his hands are up, he does form it into a fist. And I'm like, the way it's done, I'm like, it could be ambiguous. It's either like try not to die as I'm going to kick all these guys' asses and Kara will do whatever, or like try not to die and this was like it almost looked like a signal type of thing when he did close the fist.
That's the thing. I saw it as a signal, but I was like,
that's what it seemed like.
He didn't really know what she can do, but maybe he was somehow getting the vibe of what was about to happen anyway, and like, must be something about her because she's held up in this fucking facility. So I don't know. I lean towards it being a signal, I guess, but I was just like, how does he know what she's gonna do? Not a big plot hole to me at all. I was just kind of thinking about how that worked.
I will say Keaton seemed very nonplussed about the existence of aliens when they showed up and they told him stuff. He was just like, so this Zod guy, he's looking for you, and I'm like, all right. He seems to just accept this.
I know that was a little bit weird, but I think okay, yeah, this is the thing I talked about in the non-spoiler review.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like he's just gonna leave her there, and then Barry's like, no, let's save her. Like, I think it still would have had that arc of humans saving Kara and that affecting Kara's arc in the film. If both Batman, if everybody there were, all the heroes anyway, were on board for saving her, and not that he was against it, but he was like, let's go or whatever, and then Barry's like, no, let's save her. You know what I mean? I just felt like Keaton Bat should have also been like, let's save her. You know what I mean?
Here's what's interesting about that, and I'll say something that might be controversial for Keaton fans. Keaton's Batman wasn't super heroic. In the movie.
You're right about that. Okay.
Because if we look at some of the past ones where, like, Arkham City, where Batman, tells Joker, like, what's funny, no matter what you've done, I still would have saved you, like that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Keaton does not really abide by that, like there are definitely times where he has the opportunity to save people and he doesn't. Like the whole thing in Axis Chemicals where Jack Napier is like, hey, Eckhart, think about the future. Like, Batman was there. He could have stopped that. He doesn't.
Right.
He doesn't.
So you think he was like, well, she is
we don't need
obviously
her,
she's
not the one we're
here.
looking for.
Yeah, so she's I guess so, dude. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's just it kind of affected how I viewed Keaton Bat there for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wrote out a further breakdown of this that we might discuss in a future thing, but I'm like, he's not the most compassionate or heroic version of Batman, and I think that's also deliberate too, though, because of the fact that Burton wanted to explore how, like, he's kind of crazy and he's a freak too, and he's also like a few degrees away from the villains, and so like I get that it's not my preferred take, but it doesn't, like, to me it also sort of fits with what we've seen.
I guess now that you bring it up, I do see your point. It was just one of those things that I noticed in the theater, and it just kind of also, on top of what you're saying, they probably just wanted a quick exchange, like, no, let's save her, to have some sort of mini debate about it before they do it, a little bit of an exchange, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it's just very nitpicky stuff.
Yeah, I get it, but it's worth talking about because I'm like, it doesn't really surprise me when that happened. Because from his mind, it's just like, well, we're looking for Kal-El. This is not Kal-El, so let's find the actual Kal-El.
The Flash, too, in this whole movie, he's also not too heroic in some sense, because he's just kind of cleaning up his own mess the whole time. I mean, he's definitely trying to save it after the fact, but like the way the movie ends, you're kind of like, you definitely like things are worse off than they were in the beginning. Like nothing is saved totally, and he obviously he kind of fucked up again. Well, I was gonna save this for the end, but since we're here, like he doesn't seem to learn anything. Like he it was just like a major problem with the movie. Like he changes the future again after the whole movie with the tomato cans again, and it's just like, dude, I know you want to save your dad, man, but they could have set up the arc differently. Like, well, we're going to save him the regular way, not through time travel or whatever the fuck, dimension hopping. Like, I got to have restraint even with my dad. I had it with my mom. I got to have it with my dad. They should have gone that route probably, because it just, I know
finds a way to get him off a different way.
Yeah, and they wanted to have. It seemed like they wanted to have him fuck up the universe in that last scene just so they could have the Clooney cameo, which was cool. I enjoyed Clooney being in it, but don't have a hero do all this fucking shit and then learn nothing. I think this is my biggest sticking point with the whole movie, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's get into it when we get to that, actually. But
okay.
Just to sum it up, I'm like, I mostly agree with you. So, back at Wayne Manor, we do finally get to see Bruce clean shaven. Let's bring it up over here. Here we go. As he's sewing himself back up. This was cool because it's a nice little moment where he sees himself in the mirror and you can be like, yeah, still got it.
He's fucking looks crazy.
He
He looks like a fucking madman, dude. It's good. It's good. It's
Let's
good.
get nuts. So Keaton is wearing a hairpiece here that I really liked because he looked like he was right out of The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Beyond with his hairpiece.
Right. That is true.
So
yeah.
that was
good.
cool. The film then adapts the sequence where Batman attempts to help Barry recreate the experiment to give him back his powers. Like in the comic, it fails the first time. In the comic, they just do it a second time, and that turns out to work. But in the movie, Kara has her arc and decides to help out and helps take Barry up to get struck by lightning again. So that's there. Also leads to a funny moment where Batman's like, for the record, I think this is absolutely insane.
I did like that a lot. Like
Yeah.
he's kind of reluctantly helping. But yeah, it was, that was good. I kind of wanted just a quick shot of him being like "Ugh," in her arms. It just kind of fades. It dissolves to white or whatever, which is fine. Again, this is super nitpicky stuff, but I just thought we were going to get my expectation was there was going to be a shot of him like, "Ugh," while she's
see him
holding.
get struck by it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
especially after the
whatever.
spectacle of the first time where the young Barry got it through him. Like that was
Yes,
a big
exactly.
spectacle here.
Exactly.
One funny thing in the Flashpoint comic, Batman mentions to Barry that he can't give him one of his bat suits. Ironically, the movie takes the opposite approach where young Barry uses the Batman Returns suit to be his new suit, leading to a lot of great moments. One being kind of the shot of young Barry trying to cut off the ears. That was kind of funny.
I loved it. I feel like they didn't have this kind of fun with major props like 10, 15 years ago. That was probably too precious or something. But now they're like, oh yeah, fucking paint that shit red and fucking cut the ears off, motherfucker. Let's do it. I thought I'm into that. And then how it plays into the different strategies going forward, where in the end sequence where he can't run too much and can't charge up too much, also kind of raises the stakes and I thought that was great, really good.
Yeah. I also liked that they kind of did the turn the head joke, but in a way that I really liked, because I'm just like, it's going to be some lame thing about like, hey, like how come you can't turn your head, Batman, and something like this. But they didn't do that. Instead, they had Barry wear the old suit, and then at one point, his cowl, when he dons the cowl, he tries to move his head, and it's all like it was hilarious the way that
that's
they did
really
it.
good. Really,
it was really well done. I'm like, if you're gonna do a turn your head joke, that's the way to do it. That was well done.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't shit on the actual. It doesn't like really shit on the actual thing. It acknowledges the flaw in it, but because it's just like Bruce Wayne in those movies knows how to work that thing. He knows how to move in the cowl. Partially thanks to our guest Carl Newman being in the suit. He knows how to do that. Barry Allen does not. Young 18-year-old Barry Allen, who got his powers a couple days ago, does not know how to do that. So, like, it's the perfect person to demonstrate that without actually shitting on the Batman character. So that was really well done. But yeah, we get kind of an impromptu Justice League formed with 2 Flashes, a Supergirl, and a retired Batman. We get, of course, the trailer moment. You want to get nuts? Which... Again, like it felt like our theater was our audience in some way, because almost all of the big crowd moments were Keaton moments. Like I didn't see anybody really say anything when Affleck showed up.
Well, Keaton's got 40 years to simmer in pop culture history.
Yeah, I know.
So it's just how it goes.
Yeah. So we're heading into the big finale. I don't have a lot of like deep dive type things for the big desert sequence itself in terms of like comic book connections and stuff. Clearly, this is their version of the big Flashpoint thing, where in that version it was the Amazons versus, the Atlanteans. But here it's kind of like Man of Steel, but like remixed. I thought the desert sequence was really good overall. I think the CG is best when it comes to the Kryptonians. I never thought I'd ever see Keaton fight the Kryptonians ever, whether those Man of Steel Kryptonians or Donner Kryptonians. I never thought I would see him get killed twice by Kryptonians either.
Dude, what a wild fucking. That's so cool though, dude. They're going Rick and Morty nuts with it at that point. Oh, we fucked up. Let's go save again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Like
I had
it's
a feeling something like that was going to happen because, again, fucking spoilers. Like I just again was not looking for anything, but due to algorithm, YouTube suddenly showed me a thumbnail that inaccurately said that General Zod kills Batman. But I'm just like, oh well, like that. There's no way that sticks. So there's probably like some sort of like, oh, we got to reverse it type of thing. And lo and behold, that's what happened.
Right.
Just not exactly like that. He gets killed by Namek instead. Both the Batwing and Batman get taken out by Namek the second time, which again is just insane. But he definitely holds his own against Namek on that just by constantly attaching explosions onto him.
Yeah, that was
his
sick,
head.
dude. That was
So
sick.
That was awesome. But that was really cool. Kara versus Zod was cool. I did wonder at one point if one of her punches was going to make his neck snap, but they didn't do that. But the fact that like Zod just kills her in every single version, no matter what Barry does, that was rough. I was not expecting. That was another surprise. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
They get the codex. It's fine for this movie, but it was kind of just a bummer to
It was, yeah.
have like a really cool character introduced and like she has to die. It's like a big canon event, I guess, but if they cast her again, they're gonna have to explain away, in this universe. They may not have
They
to.
don't
I
have
don't know.
to. She's just a variation who didn't get killed or didn't have to face Zod.
That's true. And one of the rare, I get, because they make it seem like Barry's mom dying and then Kara dying and other events like kind of Batman dying like have to happen in like every universe or most universes, but I suppose it's infinite, right? So there's got to be another. Yeah, there's other universes where she lives, but yeah, it was just like I thought she was cool and very good presence and cast very well, dude.
Yeah.
And my wife was a fan of her look as well. She prefers like her, woman heroes to be more badass looking. Just her opinion, but she liked that look more than the blonde look.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's one where I'm like, I wish there was more of a showcase. It was one where they didn't really like she does. It's like a few degrees less than when Gal Gadot like premiered as Wonder Woman and fucking like everybody was like, oh my god, Wonder Woman's the best part of BVS and stuff. Like she didn't quite match that given the material that was given. Also given the fact that I think people were just more on board with the main characters in this movie compared to BVS. So I think that's a big part of it too. But I'm like I don't know if she made enough of the impact to be the Supergirl of Woman of Tomorrow, but I think she made enough to at least there's a possibility of her showing up again in a multiverse type of thing if they were to do that. That's my opinion.
She could be cast as possible. She could be cast as the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, whatever the gun one. It's always possible. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So anything else about the desert sequence before we go into Dark Flash stuff?
People have been bringing up bad CG in this, and like this is one time I just didn't notice it. I guess I'm bad at that. Only time I noticed bad CG was what we talked about before. Plus, when they're in the Speed Force bubble, and all that. But it was like almost like so bad. It was like, is this the look they're going for?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
Because we're not in the real world. We're in the Speed Force itself. So it kind of almost artistically gets a pass, but they did fall into the uncanny valley, basically. Yeah. It is not, it does have that effect, but dude, they're in the fucking Speed Force. I guess I give it a pass. I don't know, but that's one time, again, there's been 2 times where I notice it, but I did not notice it in the whole Man of Steel part of it because
the Man of Steel stuff was the best. That was the best CG with the Kryptonians, I think.
Okay, see, I literally can't tell the difference sometimes. So, yeah, that fucking, like, Namek it was incredible, and like
Yeah.
all the other shit. Like, dude, so I thought that was a fucking banger sequence.
Yeah, the CG on the Kryptonians was like that. That was like, I don't know which one was like, if Namek was actually a guy, or I mean, he probably was for certain shots, but there are a bunch of shots where he probably isn't. So that was really good. But yeah, we go into the Speed Force, and we go into the movie's worst kept secret. I feel there were 3 worst kept secrets that all had to do with the finale, and this is the first one, which is young Barry developing into the villain. And his costume, this was even leaked out too, which is the costumes being bits of Kryptonian armor, which we got to see in the movie when young Barry gets hit and has like the blade thing coming out of his forearm, and he keeps getting hit by more and more stuff. And the Japanese trailer didn't do this any favors when it had the shot of young Barry saying nobody dies, where he had part of the Kryptonian armor on his shoulder. So like it was kind of already,
my God,
putting people together. They kind of already knew that.
So my wife, she's Japanese, and she often says that the Japanese trailers give way too much away. I don't know why. There's just some a lot of American trailers do that too, but it seems to be pretty common in Japan as well. So one thing I like though, it wasn't as straightforward as young Barry just turning bad. Because I thought oh, here we go, but then like Dark Flash then shows up in the same scene, and I'm like, oh, it's 3, not 2. Like, I liked that surprise, because everyone was just like, he's going to become the villain. I'm just like, all right, just shut the fuck up, let me see it, and, hopefully you didn't spoil too much. And then Dark Flash shows up, and I'm like, okay, it is still technically the young Barry, but it's not, it's a future version of young Barry. So, let's talk about Dark Flash. Dark Flash is kind of an original comic book character. I mean, kind of an original character to this, and not really based on anybody called Dark Flash, who's a specific version of Barry Allen. But let's go into a character who was named Dark Flash, which is this one. This is the Dark Flash known as Walter West. This is an alternate version of Wally. Again, taking more of Barry, taking more shit from Wally, right? Like, this is an alternate version of Wally West, named Walter West, and he's a version of Flash who loses Linda Park. So that's one version. Alex Ramsey as well, from the Flashbacks or Flash Rewatch podcast, said he also looks similar to the Daniel West version of Reverse Flash, which you can kind of see the spikes. That one's kind of cool. I like that one.
Yeah. But
his fucking Flash symbol's like sideways too.
Yes. But the one I thought of when I saw this, that I've been thinking about ever since, the look of the character's been out there, and they say he's Dark Flash, and he's clearly some version of Barry, and that's Savitar. Now, Savitar in the comics.
Right.
Savitar in the comics is completely different, but the CW-specific version of Savitar is an evil speedster who has metal armor, who is an alternate version of Barry, who has a scarred face, and shows up after Flashpoint. So, to me, this was a very similar idea, but instead of a full season to explore it, they had 5 minutes. I thought the Dark Flash stuff was rushed as fuck. I was like, okay, but young Barry's now developing into Dark Flash. Now it's a standoff against Dark Flash. Oh, Dark Flash is here, so Dark Flash isn't young Barry. Okay, that's cool. And then the multiverse is crumbling around, and then young Barry decides he can't become this, and then he gets killed, and that kills both of them. I'm like, I feel like there should have been a little more. But again, this movie's crowded enough as it is. I don't know where else you could have put more Dark Flash stuff when you got Zod and all this other stuff.
I agree. I think that Dark Flash got a little short shrift in this movie. I would have liked, just because, again, we set ourselves up for the expectation. It's our fault. It's not the screenwriter's fault. But it's like, it would have been cool if we had like the punch through the multiverse scene with Dark Flash in this. And like they're trying to stop him from invading other multiverse shit. And I know, you know what I mean? I know it would have been like another insane action piece on top of the Man of Steel stuff, but it would have given us like a brawl with Dark Flash.
Yeah.
And that would have been sweet. But, and you know, it was cool. It's cool, but it could have been a little better. Again, just kind of nitpicky. It would have really sent that third act even more over the edge. And they could have been punching through the universes into the spider that Nicolas Cage Superman is fighting, right. and then into a T-Rex and somewhere else, and blah 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 blah.
I would have liked that better. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool. And the other thing is like the stuff with like the Kryptonian armor. Does that make you evil, or like how is that supposed to work? It's the combination of the Kryptonian armor plus his emotional state.
I don't think
plus
it has anything to do with
the Speed Force.
I think it's whenever he goes into to change shit, he gets hit by the Kryptonian armor, and he develops it more and more. So the fact that he now is covered in that just shows how many attempts he's made. But I don't think it makes him more evil. I think it's just It's just a state of mind.
Well, them going straight, like butting heads with his arc. So, hold on, we're going big again. So his arc, main Barry, older Barry, his arc is to ultimately accept his mother's death.
Yes.
And when he finally does that, that comes into direct opposition with younger evil Barry.
Yeah.
And I thought that particular thing was done very well. I thought that was really, really good. It's just if that just led into a brawl with fucking Dark Flash, just let that lead into more of a brawl.
I mean, it's better than them just standing around and then us seeing all this stuff happen. I'm like, just have your characters be active. Have them we had 3 speedsters in a fucking fight. When do you an actual speedster fight? We didn't even get a speedster fight.
It was a budget thing, I'm sure. They were like, let's do all the Man of Steel shit.
They blew it on the Kryptonians when this is the Flash movie.
I'm telling you, dude, I'm sure Hodson probably wrote some shit like that in a draft. Yeah. And they were like, we got to do just one of these. All
right. Well, let's talk about the sequence where there's the multiverse, and let's talk about these cameos.
Okay.
So we get to see different ones. We get to see. I'll list them off, and then we can go into our opinions about them and stuff. But first is George Reeves, along with a Jay Garrick who belongs in the George Reeves thing because they're
I was
part of the
crazy.
That was cool. That was really cool. Even though I don't know if they ever cast an actor for Jay Garrick, he looked very animated at that point.
Yeah.
And so did George. George. I mean, we'll go into opinions later, actually. But then we get Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater on screen together for the first time. Something that could have happened in Superman 3 if you followed our episode on the original Salkind treatment. So check that out. I did not, by the way, plan that out. Like, I planned that because Supergirl was in it and Supergirl was in Flash. I did not for sure know that Helen Slater was going to have the cameo with the CG Christopher Reeve in this. So I did not. That was not deliberate on my part. Then we get the glimpse of Adam West in Batman 66. And then we get the second worst kept secret, Nicolas Cage's Superman fighting a giant spider. Now, why is Nicolas Cage Superman? Why is he fighting a giant spider? I overheard you explain this to your wife on this. I will allow you to explain it to our audience if they don't know. I'm sure most of them do, though.
So, okay. So, when we're leaving the theater, my wife is like, was Nicolas Cage Superman?
I told you. I'm like, we're going to get it, but other people are going to have that reaction.
I think a lot of our audience that watches this podcast and listens to it probably gets it. But for the percentage of you that don't know, watch Superman. What the Death of Superman Lives is a documentary. Explains it in full detail. But they're one of the most unmade. It was an unmade movie that Tim Burton was going to do after Batman Returns, I guess, was to direct a Superman movie. And Nicolas Cage was cast. They even made the suit. They got fairly far into production, and he was supposed to fight a big spider because literally the fucking producer, John Peters, was into just fighting spiders. So that's why that is there. And it was honestly probably my favorite Easter egg or whatever you call it. I just thought that it's just one of those things. It's like became a phenomenon after it was never made. And it's like one of those, it's like lost media almost. And people kind of really want to have seen that made. And Tim Burton said he's still holding out hope. And honestly, with this fucking movie, like maybe it'll give it some traction somehow. But there's so many other they got to focus on Superman Legacy
Well,
and
that's a
fucking
bigger thing, yeah.
the Val Zod one is also still in the works somehow, some way. So I don't know. I still don't know if they'll make it, but maybe animated, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, so this was the second worst kept secret, but part of it was Muschietti himself. Muschietti himself, apparently. Yeah, I knew that Muschietti had spoiled a cameo, and that's started my whole thing of like, all right, I'm not looking at any news sites, not looking at any social media.
I knew he had spoiled something.
Yeah.
I heard that news, but I didn't know what it was. So this was it.
This was it because, and I don't know how much of that is Muschietti being just like, fuck it, I'll tell people so that it gets more butts and seats. Or Muschietti hearing that, because this was also leaked out beforehand. I don't know if Muschietti thought like, people already know about it, or I'll tell them. Or it was this thing where Muschietti is just talking to, Variety, which is who it is, and he just assumed they would release it after the movie was actually released.
Right.
Which I think is the most likely scenario on
Right.
this. But this is what surprised me, because I looked into the actual article now that I've seen the movie. Nicolas Cage actually shot this.
Awesome.
Which is awesome, but I'm like, it would have been nice if he looked like he looks like he's CG animated in this. I just assumed they just used his likeness and got his permission for the likeness. But
see, the thing is, you got Baby Yoda or whatever, Grogu and Mandalorian looks CG, but that's a real puppet on stage, and they just do CG overlay onto whatever the fuck. So they did it on his face and everything else. It looked overly CG.
Yeah. I thought it would actually be Nick Cage, and apparently it was Nick Cage. It doesn't look like him. It looks like Nick Cage lended his likeness to it, and they put it on a body double. Like that's kind of what it looked like to me. But apparently he did shoot it. Muschietti said that Nick Cage was quote unquote absolutely wonderful, and he dove into it. And I'm like, I wish I could have seen that. Like I
mean, Nick Cage is known for being an actor that gives, and that like goes, as we all know, not afraid of overacting, not afraid of going that 120%. So yeah.
Apparently, they also planned other cameos. So I didn't consider this a spoiler because it's more of like who he said wasn't in it, and you can kind of be like, well, maybe he's just saying it because they're actually in it, but they definitely weren't in this because we saw it. One of them was Grant Gustin's Flash.
Okay.
Linda Carter's Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Burgess Meredith's Penguin. Cesar Romero's Joker. I guess this would have been in conjunction with Adam West, but I'm like, come on, if you're going to represent Batman 66 with one person, it's going to be Adam West. Like, it doesn't make sense to just throw these guys instead. And the last one was Marlon Brando's Jor-El. But again, I think they picked the right picks, at least when it comes to the 66 universe and the Christopher Reeve universe. It would have been nice to see Linda Carter, because Wonder Woman is in this movie. Definitely would have been nice to see another Flash who wasn't Ezra Miller or wasn't CG, Jay Garrick. But let's go into some opinions on this sequence. I know a lot of people online, when footage of this started getting leaked out, they seem to be offended of the use of actors who are no longer with us. Let me just put this out there. There's no way they could have done this without permission from the families and the estates. Like, legally, they can't even do that. So I thought it was fine as a tribute. If, for example, Christopher Reeve's son is completely fine with his dad being in this movie for 2 seconds, I'll side with Christopher Reeve's son. Like, if it's cool with the families, which it must have been in order for them to do that, then it's fine with me. Like, I see a lot of uproar for it. I'm just like, this is not... There were a lot of issues I had with the movie. If I had one with the cameos, it was A, it being kind of spoiled, and B, it looking very overly CG. Yeah. But like, throwing Christopher Reeve in there, like, it's not like they bastardize Christopher Reeve. It's not like Christopher Reeve shows up, but he's like doing something really fucked up. Like, he's literally just standing there the whole time. So I'm like, this. I as I told you offline, I'm like, I don't really get it. I'm not offended by it. But yeah, I had more of an issue, and it wasn't offensive to me, but it was more of like, this is basically an animated sequence. It's like what you said, where I'm like, this is what it's gonna look like. Like, no one here looks real. That's why I was surprised Nicolas Cage actually shot this. I do wish that they used archive footage for if we were to go back to George Reeves, because like, you didn't. Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater, like they were never on screen together, so you kind of need to do that in some way, right? But like George Reeves, it's literally just the opening with him with his fists on his waist, just like in the opening of The Adventures of Superman. I'm like, you could have just put that in there. Like, I don't get why you needed to do a CG animated version of him. But I guess maybe it's a case too where, like, for consistency's sake, if everyone looks like a CG cartoon, he's got to look like a CG cartoon.
That's really what it is, dude. I think that it would. They're just trying to keep consistency because they're in it's a whole Speed Force sequence.
Yeah,
which there's a lot of CG going on there. I mean, look, it probably could have looked better, but they spent it all on the fucking Kryptonians.
See, I did appreciate that Jay Garrick was in this, but like, he's there as an Easter egg. It's cool that there's another Flash in there who's not Ezra Miller, the specific version of Barry. But I also wish, John Wesley Shipp has been playing Jay Garrick. John Wesley Shipp is one of the most well-known Flash actors among the Flash fans. His version wouldn't fit with the George Reeves world, but this is a Flash movie, and this movie celebrates that there are, by my count, 4 Batmen with Affleck, Keaton, West, and you-know-who at the end. Then we got 4 CG Supermen with Cavill, Reeves, Reeve, Nicolas Cage, 2 Supergirls with, Sasha Calle and Helen Slater. And then when it comes to Flash, the main character, we get 3 Ezra Millers and a Jay Garrick cameo that, if you're not a comic book fan, you just don't really know who the hell that is. Maybe you think that it's an alternate Flash because he's got the lightning bolt and he's running, but you don't really know. You couldn't throw in other Flashes to honor some of the legacy. I get that it's not as big of a legacy as Superman and Batman, but still, like Rod Hassey is the first guy to don a Flash suit. That was in Legends of the Superheroes with Adam West. He could have been thrown in with the Batman 66 world. I get that they're trying to bury that because that special is considered to be awful, but he is the first live-action Flash, and if you're doing CG overlay anyway, you can cover up how bad the costume looked, or you're not even showing any footage of that special. You couldn't throw in John Wesley Shipp as either the Flash or 1990 or Jay Garrick, and apparently they thought Grant Gustin wouldn't fit, which, again, as people have pointed out, feels a little weird when you've got all these multiple versions of other characters who aren't Flash. So
they I don't know, man. There's just something weird going on between CW and their film division.
Yeah.
That's what that boils down to. That probably wasn't even a Muschietti or Hodgson decision.
Yeah, I feel like Muschietti is covering it up when he's just like, oh, like we couldn't fit it in. I'm like, I feel like you were told we can't do this.
These directors are part diplomat, dude. They gotta.
Well, you can't shit on your boss when you're promoting a project.
Yeah,
I mean, you can. You're just, if you're fucking, what's his name, who did the Fantastic Four movie, and right when it got released, he was like, by the way, Mike.
Josh Trank.
Yeah, you can, but don't expect it to be, in the next one.
He never worked again.
Well, he did, but just not like that. I know some people online were just like, Grant Gustin should have been the other Barry. Why is it 2 Ezra Millers? But I'm like, you guys clearly are not paying attention to what the story is in the trailers, because it's about him interacting with his younger self, not an alternate self, But yeah, like, look, Reeves' CG cameo and Adam West and Nick Cage especially, like all that type of shit leaked out, unfortunately, months ago. I didn't personally believe it until I heard that there was this whole multiverse thing and Nick Cage shows up. I'm like, okay, maybe that other stuff shows up too. But, look, it's still kind of cool that they did it, and I would argue, even if some things were spoiled, the movie overall should still work and not be super reliant on multiple surprises of cameos for people that are in like less than a minute of screen time. So, any other thoughts on the cameos?
I agree with you. I don't think it's that big of a deal, and they probably are. They're going to get royalties. The estates are going to get royalties from this till the end of time. For this movie. The Reeves estate, that's going to be another paycheck they get. Not that money is everything, but, they had to agree to it. I don't think it shits on their legacy. And I also, the other issue, too, is, like, I'm not one of these guys that's like Seinfeld when he's talking to Zach Galifianakis in one of his episodes. He's like, he kind of makes fun of him for making Hangover 2 and 3 because it shits on Hangover 1. It seemed like Seinfeld was a huge fan, was a fan at least of the Hangover 1, and didn't like how they did sequels to it. And
Sure.
I'm dude, if a shitty sequel does not shit on the original movie. Like Terminator 1 and 2 still so awesome even though all the other ones suck. You know? Aliens 1, 2, maybe 3, all these other ones, all the later ones, like Godfather 3 to me, I haven't seen it, but I know the reputation.
It doesn't take away from the first two.
Yeah, it doesn't take away. It's just a shitty version. It doesn't shit on the fucking legacy. Like I just don't think that like that, and a lot of people do. So maybe some people are thinking, you know, this is a Flash movie is kind of below the prestige of Christopher Reeve's Superman legacy, and that's why they don't like it. I'm sure most of this is about Christopher Reeve. So, and it's just like, I personally, I don't think that way. I just don't think that way at all.
Yeah, same. So eventually Barry decides that he does have to reset the timeline. He does have to allow his mom to die, but not before he says goodbye to her one last time. Something similar does happen in the Flashpoint comic, though not in the animated movie. In that storyline, this is Barry telling her everything that actually happened before saying goodbye to her, as we see here. But given the story of this movie, it wouldn't have really made as much sense. So we do have the scene in the movie where Barry says goodbye to his mom and sneakily puts the tomato can, sauce can back to where it was before so that everything is reset. It is one of the better scenes. It's certainly emotional. And it does work really well. It's just, again, this is something that is a problem when you're a Flash fan. I feel like I saw this on TV already. Like the Flash season 1 finale on the CW did a perfect way to do this, where Barry decides he can't save his mom when he goes back in time and elects instead to take it as a second chance to say goodbye to her. And that's the first time I got hit with like a ton of the emotions about a very similar type of thing. And it's really tough when I've seen that and that's stuck in my mind in like 2015 or so. And we're doing it again in a different way, except we haven't spent nearly as much time with these versions before. And
I don't know, man.
Also,
I think I'm okay.
To me,
all
I'm just
this.
like, it's not the same.
We agree a lot on this channel,
Yeah.
but I think and I saw that first few seasons of Flash, and like I don't know. It's to me, it's just like we're going in knowing they're doing Flashpoint type shit.
Yeah.
I was fine with them kind of covering these beats again.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with the fact that you cover the beats. You have to for that.
Yeah.
It's tough though when like it's not like that show was like in the 90s. Like it's like it feels very very recent. So I'm like,
Yeah.
it feels like another variation of something that I just saw. Even though like it was 2015, it's 2023 now, but still, like so it tripped me up though. But still like I shouldn't hold it against the movie, but I can't lie and say it didn't affect my reaction to it in some ways. So that's kind of the main thing. We do go to Barry's present day with his dad's hearing, where it's revealed that, like you talked about, Barry basically moved the tomato cans to allow his dad to look up. He did change the timeline. Shit's different, and you had the issue that I agree with, which is the fact that it seems like Barry, after all this talking to young Barry about like, hey, like we shouldn't fix things, we should try to move on, accept things as they are, he clearly doesn't learn his own lesson from that. I think you still have to end the movie with him getting his dad free. I still think that's a very satisfying thing. I think there is a level of satisfaction in seeing him look up in the security footage and get him to be free, but it's just you feel conflicted by it, right? Because on the one hand, it is emotionally satisfying, but it's also in a way not completely emotionally satisfying because you're just like, well, wait a minute, like doesn't that undo everything you learned? And also, it kind of just feels like, well, if he just did that earlier, he could have just prevented all this shit from happening. Like we would have a much shorter movie.
I mean, it was just like you just almost destroyed not just one universe and one life, but like
Right.
all the multiverse in itself by
Mhm.
fucking with shit in the timeline. So what, dude? I have a very hard time with that. Like the rest of the movie is good, but I don't know, dude. It's just like you didn't learn fucking shit, bro. You didn't learn anything.
There was definitely something off about the ending, and maybe it's the fact that it was not the original ending. So let's talk about that for a second. So, as shown in set photos, and this is why I hate it sometimes when they film in public, but the original ending was supposed to show both Kara and Keaton's Bruce Wayne alive and well, and now part of this universe. As we can see here, is Sasha Kaye in front of the courthouse, and Keaton's Bruce Wayne in front of the courthouse. But presumably Kara will take over from Superman because WB was just not having it with Henry Cavill for whatever reason. And Keaton was to be the Batman of the DCEU going forward, which then leads into Batgirl, and Keaton reportedly playing some version that's kind of like a combination of his Batman from the Burton films and Affleck's, since he works with J.K. Simmons, even though J.K. Simmons is younger than him. It was a weird choice. But this is all cut. Batgirl was canceled. Keaton's part, of course, is replaced instead with the third worst kept secret of this. I'm assuming you did not know this when Clooney showed up, that this was going to happen. Or did you know?
I didn't know that this was the ending thing. So I had heard rumblings that there was some sort of real crazy surprise at the end. I did not know what that surprise was, and then also I had heard that Clooney could show up in some way, and I did not connect those two things from these, disparate news sources. So I was a little shocked at it, but not completely shocked, just from the events of everything with the movie.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, for those who know Grace Randolph, she leaked some shit. And she posted basically that there was going to be a third Batman to show up. I guess technically fourth, with Adam West, with Clooney's photo included in it. And a bunch of people retweeted her. So that's pretty much how I knew.
Just don't. Don't, man.
Yep. But yeah, I wish I could have been like what everyone else was in the theater, because everyone went nuts at that point. And that was the last thing that everyone went nuts over in the theater, was when George Clooney showed up, which is funny because like I remember years ago on a Patreon, we were saying like, hey, if Keaton doesn't actually sign on for this Flash movie, who should they bring on from the past? And I joked, George motherfucking Clooney. And guess what? We got both of them. We got Clooney and Keaton in this. But despite me knowing this was coming and this was not a surprise, I did really love this, actually. Like, we don't just get Affleck's swan song and Keaton's. We get Clooney coming back one more time. Another fan idea that's been proposed over the years of just like, he could have been a better Batman and you just needed to give him the right material. Well, sure, it's just one scene. He's in it for like 5 seconds. But still, I maintain the actual characterization of Bruce in Batman and Robin is way better than people give it credit for. Clooney's a better actor now than he was back in 97. But most of all, Clooney, like, in my opinion, like Christian Bale after him, is a better Bruce Wayne than he was as Batman. And it's great that he shows up as Bruce Wayne. His 5-second cameo here is great. I loved his delivery where he's like, what's wrong with you? Like, you could see a little bit of the Michael Clayton.
It was good.
A little pissed, a little bit of like a more darker Batman poke through for like a second there. And I love that. But that it's also weird that the last line of the Flash movie, if we take out the post-credits scene, is "You're not Batman."
Right.
So from Barry. So I'm like, but I get it. It's an in joke, but it is. I talked to Alex about this. I'm like, I think what it is the ending went from something that set up the future of the DCEU to an ending that shuts the door on the DCEU. Because Ezra Miller's Flash is now in a world where George Clooney is Batman, and we know that world is not going to continue. Like, we know Clooney is not going to be the Batman of the Brave and the Bold. He's just there for that, for that one scene. He's not going to show up again as Batman. So it kind of closes the door on that world from what I could see. I mean, we haven't seen Aquaman 2 yet. We haven't seen what Gunn has in store for Superman Legacy. but it feels like he's there so that the door is shut, not so that the door is open. But that could just be my reading on it. What do you think?
I mean, so it kind of feels like I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it could have been possible that they shot both, and maybe Muschietti was kind of, he needed to convince the studio of one thing, and he was like, well, we'll shoot your version, but we're going to shoot my version too. We can do it, almost in the same days as this other day and all this other shit, and like it's all going to be in the Speed Force bubble anyway, so you know what I mean, or what, I don't know. Well, I guess it would change the whole Man of Steel sequence and shit, but I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe they wanted to shoot both and just kind of see how they both cut in the edit, or maybe the studio wanted one and he wanted one, and he got the budget to shoot both of them. I don't know how that worked, but I forgot about that. That scene with them in front of the courthouse, that was some of the first stuff that was leaked about the movie. I didn't even think about it because it'd been actually a long time since I'd seen those shots, so I didn't even think about them not being in the movie. But I guess it does kind of shut the door, like you said. Honestly, I don't. Even if there's like no super closure on this, like Gunn came in really late in the game for a lot of the stuff, and like if we don't get closure in Aquaman, there's no closure in any of these movies, as long as that emotional core is there and the story is good overall, I personally don't really require any of that, Yeah. But it's interesting. It's an interesting point, I guess.
Yeah. We were kind of anticipating that the post-credit scene was going to be something really crazy. But
something good? You mean something good at all?
Something that was actually worth sitting through the credits for. But Jesus Christ, I was like, this is
stupid.
This is what we sat through. I would have rather there was no post-credit scene at that point. I guess they're trying to say Aquaman 2 is still showing up, even though the universe has been reset. Don't worry, Jason Momoa is still Aquaman for at least this year. But I was like, should have just ended it on Clooney. Like we waited all that
right,
and all this hype about like what could it be, like some insane thing that actually sets up the DCU. Like it's somebody probably had a pipe dream too that like they would debut Superman from Superman Legacy in it. And obviously that's not happening.
People don't know that when people say stuff like that, it's like they don't know the fucking timeline for movies at all.
No,
like they don't even have a guy cast.
Even if they did have him cast, I'm like, you expect them to have the costume ready?
Yeah, that's a whole other deal. That's a whole other fucking deal, dude. Like the type of news coming out about Superman Legacy is nuts. Like they've kind of posting the dates that they're going to be doing more auditions for like kind of their final round. Yeah. It's just so like nothing is kept secret anymore. This movie's like the most talked about movie right now, I feel like. Like movie in pre-production. So it's just kind of, it's wild to me just how much transparency there is now, for better or worse. Yeah. But anyway, what were we talking about?
We made it. We made it to the end of the Flash. I knew this was going to be a long one, but it's a special event. It's the return of Keaton. It's the end of the DCEU and the first Flash movie. So there's a whole bunch of stuff involved in it. But overall, like, obviously we're glad we saw it. It's just, it's, again, there's so much hyperbole. I guess there is a downside to the main downside I find to doing the show is the fact that being on any sort of social media where we're promoting ourselves, we get exposed to a lot more of this spoiler and leaks, and Grace Randolph talking about Clooney and Ping Pong Flicks putting a CG Superman in his thumbnail and that type of shit. Like we get exposed to that way more than the average person. So I'm like I'm go back and forth. I'm just like, how much more would my score have gone up on this from like a 7 out of 10 or so? Like, would it have gone up more if I knew less, not just about the characters or previous versions, but also like the cameos and all that type of stuff. And then the other part of me is just like, yeah, but a movie shouldn't be super reliant on just those little surprise moments. It just
But
still work.
I think that because of the podcast and because of the kind of people we follow, I think you were too close to this, man, going in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just didn't have much surprise,
Mm-hmm.
or not as much as you probably should have. And I do think that if you give this a year, few months, and do a rewatch and kind of forget about a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you'll probably enjoy it more. Because I do think this is maybe a different issue in some ways, but I do think that you didn't like Man of Steel too much when it came out, but then you gave it a rewatch a couple years after the fact, and you appreciated it a lot more. Correct?
Yeah, and I rewatched it earlier to lead up to the Flash, and I think I had a lot more appreciation for just the craft in general, around just how it looked, considering how superhero movies look now. And I'm just like, look, I'm not the biggest Snyder fan. I think the cult is insane, but they're onto something in terms of him having a certain something to him that other DC movies just haven't quite matched up to when it comes to the visual style of it. So
right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I do think I gained more appreciation of it, or was able to separate some of the smaller issues from the overall, from the whole of it. But yeah, I mean, again, the fact that we've broken down so much Keaton shit over the years did kind of expose me in the algorithms to so much other stuff, and also probably didn't help all the overhype as well. Like I feel like if people weren't talking about this as if it was the second coming, if Tom Cruise didn't say shit, then I probably would have had more tempered expectations too. Where it's just like, it's just a fun superhero movie that has some cool surprises, and Keaton's Batman is awesome in it. I'll be like, all right, cool, and I'd go in with those expectations. But when you got Stephen King being, basically my theory is that Stephen King, Tom Cruise, they haven't seen a superhero movie since fucking '89 or something. Because I'm like, this is still good, but I'm like, it's not like mind blowing the way that you guys made it sound like.
Yeah,
it's not like this thing that elevates the genre.
Your expectations were like way too high, but I mean, mine were too. It's just it just kind of sucks. People were just going nuts over this, dude, and it's just I don't know. It's fine. I'm glad people are liking it. I'm glad people are. I mean, it is good. It's just they fucked our expectations for sure.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, we need the internet for our show, but also fuck the internet. It's stuff where I'm like, the weeks that I spent away from social media was like really good for me, I think. Not for when it came to this, but just like no longer having to see a bunch of shitty opinions on stuff that I'd rather not read. So
I had kind of the opposite with Transformers: Rise of the Beast lately. Like I went in, Metacritic scores at 44. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be kind of shitty. Let's go in, and it's like, it's not great, but it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a 44. It's more like a 58 or whatever. It's a 60, It's like, it's not that bad. And so I kind of left the theater. I left the theater like, that was pretty damn good, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. But again, it's a testament to expectations.
Yeah, I think so too.
And
with that, on that note, that is superhero stuff you should know. Big thanks to Dan for gathering the visuals for the YouTube experience. Did my best not to spoil you. I basically sent him a whole list of different images, told him that some may or may not apply to this. So hopefully they didn't spoil stuff, especially when it came to Nick Cage Superman. All right, so Nate R. responded, I wonder when Superman Lives will have its scripts breakdown from you guys. I know that film's concept art would come after that, and that would be an interesting discussion. But I know you guys must be planning those episodes given recent events. Winky face. Well, we'll have to see on that. I mean, it's a lot of different scripts, but obviously there's been a resurgence in the discussion of that, hasn't there? So it'll be sometime this year. We'll cover at least one of them. I think there's a lot. There's just a shit ton of them. There's a shit ton of scripts for me to read. when we cover Superman Lives. I've been delaying it just because it's a lot of work.
Does Superman Lives have it in and of itself have a lot of drafts?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have,
Oh yeah, because what's his name? Kevin Smith did a full rewrite too, huh?
he has 2, and his is just the beginning. His is technically before Nicolas Cage is even cast.
Oh wow. Okay,
So if I were to look through, I think I have the breakdown too of how many I have. Just real quick on that.
that would be an epic episode, dude. We would probably do a few parter for that.
Oh,
and
no.
Ben-
We need it's a whole series, dude. We need
Yeah.
Superman Reborn by Carrie Bates, and he co-wrote it. And then we've got Jonathan Lemkin, Greg Poirier, Kevin Smith did 2 drafts, Wesley Strict, Dan Gilroy, Alex Ford did a separate thing called Man of Steel, William Wisher, and then we've got Superman Flyby, which is a whole different thing, and that has 2 drafts. So those are all the scripts that I have. I would have to read Kevin Smith's to lead up to Wesley Strict Superman, Dan Gilroy, and I think William Wisher as well for that. But and that's just the Superman Lives segment. That's back when it's just Burton and Nicolas Cage, not to mention all the stuff before and after. So
okay.
a lot of stuff, but I think it's for sure. Like it's got a point though. Like it is a big part of what we do. Like it fits in what we do in the show that we have not covered yet. So
Okay.
we'll get to it. But thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Dyna Guy commented on the Man of Steel concept art episode, saying, quote, "Although I don't like this movie for what it did to the Superman character and his reputation, I think they did a good job of Krypton." I think we can agree with that too, especially with the concept art.
Yeah.
The birthing matrices are actually from the comics, specifically the John Byrne era. Yeah, I think I remember that. I think the idea of Clark or Kal-El being the first natural born, though, is still Snyder. And the whole codex stuff and those things. Like I think that's still
Right.
very Snyder. It's just the birthing matrix thing. They were mainly for cloning organ replacements. The idea for this Krypton was for it to be very organic and have no straight lines on the planet. It's meant to be a technologically advanced society that has become emotionless and isolated. And
That was my point. Of
Yeah.
Like them becoming like Vulcan-like, evil
Yeah.
Vulcan-ish, yeah.
And Rao is actually present throughout the planet in the writings that I think we have to attribute to Christine Schreier.
Right.
For that, they say the light of Rao warms us, and we give thanks to the great god Rao and celebrate his victory over Sethona. The sci-fi Krypton show was originally planned to be a prequel to Man of Steel, which could have been interesting. So
It's in the writings, like kind of just around the city of.
that's what it seems like.
Okay,
According
I
to
mean,
that,
yeah, that is cool, and there are inscriptions on the suit itself too. Apparently, I remember hearing about that. I don't know if it says anything about Rao,
I think
but
that's specifically for BVS.
oh,
I
okay.
think the BVS one has Kryptonian. It's a quote from Joseph Campbell that's in Kryptonian.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I remember hearing
But I
about
don't think
that.
it's
Yeah.
anything about Rao. But yeah, there's nothing about Rao in the dialogue itself in those movies.
Right,
Or in this
right.
one with the Flash. I don't think. So
No,
but thanks,
I don't think so. Thank you.
All right. Twitter user Dan RS87 asks, "Have you all considered doing an episode on Sam Raimi's unmade Spider-Man 4?" Yes, of course. I mean, there's not a script that we can find on that, so that would kind of have to go. That might be a very short episode when it comes to what we know in terms of the interviews and stuff. But that's another one that we'll definitely cover. There's a lot of Spider-Man stuff and Superman stuff that we have not covered yet. Even though it seems like we've covered a bunch of the Batman stuff, we still have a lot of other unmade, lost media stuff to cover. So stay tuned.
Okay.
All right, on to the shoutouts.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this long episode, and we want to thank Slight Rebellion Off Madison, Meteor P, Michael W, Bruce K, Tita, Sketchcraft, Kyle B, Darren P, Devin, Titbout, and Renee V, and everybody else up on the board as well, including our other supporters. And we've told you about our friends here, and we would like you to do us a favor.
We want you to tell all your friends.